Chapter 2673. This was fatal to other seventh firmament immortal monarchs. The reason why celestial kings were so powerful was because they stood at the height of the laws. They could directly use the laws and represent heaven and earth to mete out punishments. Why was there a saying that the 9 heavens of the celestial king realm was like ascending to the heavens with every step? It was also because of the rules. Just as Qin Shuang was doing now, he directly scattered the nearby rules. With his higher realm, he could obviously extract the rules of heaven and earth in a wider range, but Ling Han couldn't. Could a celestial king, who had been stripped of regulations, be stronger than a severing mundane tear? Ha 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 ha. Qin Shuang laughed wildly and waved the saw knife. Ling Han's secret method is strong and has a bird's use. As long as the other party has no rules to call, it is a dead crab. One hit can take a life. Ling Han was unmoved. He brandished his divine demon sword and moved toward Qin Shuang. Boom! When the two fairy tools collided, it immediately triggered a violent fluctuation, and Qin Shuang's body trembled and was sent flying. He turned pale with fright, unable to understand why he was at a disadvantage in terms of strength. How could that be? One had to know that in the previous attacks, Ling Han was not a match for him at all. And the gap between them was not just a little. Why was it that he was the one losing here? Ling Han's strength has skyrocketed. No, Qin Shuang immediately said in his heart. With his eyesight, of course, he could immediately judge it. In fact, Ling Han's strength has not improved. On the contrary, it has dropped a little. His strength had dropped too much. This was very normal. Although he could still extract the rules, he had come from a place far away. Originally, this was nothing. Even if he could only extract 10% of the rules, it was still an endless suppression when compared to Ling Han's 0. The problem now was that Ling Han's strength hadn't dropped because he couldn't extract the rules, but his strength had been greatly reduced because he had extracted fewer rules. In comparison, he was actually inferior to Ling Han in terms of strength. Thinking about this, Qin Shuang was shocked and regretful. He was shocked. Ling Han must have cultivated physical skills, which was why he could be so ferocious even when he couldn't mobilize the rules. However, this brat's physical skills were too domineering. He could actually stand at the same height as the rules, or even a little stronger. What he regretted was that he had personally shattered the nearby space and broken the rules. He pushed himself into the mire. Wasn't he an idiot? Thanks, Ling Han said, adding insult to injury. Qin Shuang couldn't help but blush. This is really ironic. Before, he was shameless and arrogant. He was confident that the overall situation was in control. He thought that as long as he made a move, he could kill Ling Han. The result was the opposite. Don't mention killing Ling Han. He also suffered some small losses. He roared angrily and pointed the saw knife at Ling Han. Little brat, how dare you mock this old man? How dare you? What? You've come to kill me, yet I still have to be respectful to you? Am I an idiot? Or are you trying to be despicable? Ling Han's words were unforgiving. He had been trained by the large black dog, and his ability to insult others was definitely not inferior to his battle prowess. Qin Shuang was so angry that his head was flying. He didn't talk nonsense with Ling Han anymore. Another knife slashed over. Ling Han was fearless. Not only did he wave the divine demon sword to meet it, but his left hand also condensed into a fist, blasting at Qin Shuang. During this period of time, he was in an absolutely strong period. He could completely suppress Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang was extremely depressed. His strength was far above Ling Han. However, because he didn't think that Ling Han actually cultivated a terrifying physical skill, the result was a mistake. He lost everything. Now he could only be beaten violently. He almost couldn't recognize his mother. But after all, he was the peak emperor star of the 9th heaven, and he controlled this large formation. He was changing the space here. The space had been changed, and the rules were naturally restored to their original state. At that time, he was still the overlord of the 9th heaven, and Ling Han would be beaten back to his original form. With the help of the celestial tool, Qin Shuang could barely hold on. After paying the price of being hit by Ling Han's 3 punches, he finally drew another side of the world to change. Suddenly, the frenzied rules returned to calm. Boy, you have to pay the price, Qin Shuang roared. He was hit by Ling Han's 3 punches. Even with his strength, he broke a rib, arm bone and shoulder bone. He couldn't recover for a long time. But now that the rules were back, his injuries were immediately recovered. His eyes exuded an ominous glint. You have completely angered me. Before he was still old and decrepit, but now he was beyond angry. Naturally, he couldn't care less. He only had one thought. Take down Ling Han, torture him enough, and then kill him. Ling Han laughed loudly. A villain who hides his head and shows his tail. He only knows how to sneak attack. If we fight at the same tier, I can kill you with one finger. Now I have to spend some effort. Qin Shuang suppressed his anger, waved the saber in his right hand, and grabbed a great path in his left hand. It turned into a giant rod and smashed towards Ling Han. This was the embodiment of his true battle prowess. Ling Han smiled faintly. His current battle prowess had also entered the 9th heaven. Even if he couldn't defeat the peak 9th heaven Emperor Star, everyone was within this level. Above him was the quasi-celestial venerable. That level was the same. So what if he was a little weaker? Hong hong hong. The 2 great elites fought, but Ling Han wasn't afraid at all. Every move was a struggle with Qin Shuang. In terms of battle prowess, Ling Han was indeed no match for him. Moreover, he was even at a great disadvantage. However, in terms of physique, Ling Han was ridiculously powerful. Those who could surpass him at the Celestial King tier were only those who were born with such a physique. The large black dog could also be considered one of them. After all, he had also cultivated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Therefore, his battle prowess was no match. But Ling Han was almost unharmed. As long as he blocked the saw saber. With Qin Shuang's own battle prowess, if she wanted to hurt Ling Han, it was difficult. Even when Ling Han operated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, he could withstand a celestial tool. However, if he didn't become a celestial venerable, he could only continuously operate the indestructible Heaven's Scroll for about 2 hours. 10 moves, 100 moves, 1,000 moves. Ling Han was extremely tenacious. I have to admit that you are the strongest 7th heaven I have ever seen. Qin Shuang suddenly stopped attacking, as if she admired Ling Han very much. Ling Han shook his head. In the 9th heaven I have seen, you can't rank in the top 10. For example, the big black dog, Du Shi, Amu, the Imperial Void Celestial King, and so on. Which one was stronger than Qin Shuang? Qin Shuang couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He commented like this from the identity of a superior, with a condescending momentum, but when Ling Han opened his mouth, he directly demoted him to the ditch. How could he still maintain a high and mighty demeanor? This brat's mouth was even more terrifying than his battle prowess. Brat with a cheap mouth, you really angered me. Qin Shuang trembled all over, a golden light flowing in his eyes, like tears, constantly falling down. Not only that, his hair also changed from gray to gold. His skin tightened from flabby and shriveled, turning into a golden color, and his stooped figure returned to being tall and straight. Now, he seemed to have suddenly changed from an old man of 60 to 70 years old to a young man. A cold light flashed in Ling Han's eyes. Are you finally going to come up with all your strength? Reaching the Celestial King realm, which one didn't have an unlimited lifespan, and no longer feared the immortal's calamity. How could it be like Qin Shuang? Therefore he was either sick in the head, deliberately pretending to be like this, or he was cultivating some strange art. This was caused by the art. Chapter 2674. Ha ha ha. Qin Shuang looked up to the sky and laughed. Now his figure was tall and sturdy, and his whole body was golden. Everyone thinks that I, Qin Shuang, entered the martial arts institution, and threw myself under He Yufeng because I was chaste. Hee, this is indeed a reason, but the main reason is that I want to cultivate this heavenly feather sacred metal technique. Now, I have a small success. I will let you boy taste the power. His feet bounced, pung, the whole person suddenly flew out. The speed was extremely fast. Ha! Ling Han was surprised. Qin Shuang's explosion this time was not accelerated by using the rules of space to travel through space, but the speed of his physical body was too fast. How much speed a martial artist could exert was limited by 2 points. First, extreme speed, and second, the endurance of the physical body. because under high-speed movement, the body would be under terrible pressure, and even celestial kings could be torn apart because of such pressure. Therefore, for most celestial kings, the actual speed was far from reaching the extreme speed. But just now Qin Shuang's speed definitely exceeded the extreme speed, or rather, exceeded the extreme speed he had been maintaining before. It was because he had metallized his body, making his physique incomparably tyrannical. This speed was too fast, and when Ling Han reacted, Qin Shuang had already pounced in front of him, and a saber was swung over. Ling Han barely raised the divine demon sword and struck. Wang, the celestial weapons clashed, raising a terrible aftermath. Pung pung pung, it began to wreak havoc in the space, destroying the rules. Qin Shuang roared, and a palm slapped again, pressing towards Ling Han's chest. Ling Han operated the indestructible heaven scroll, taking this blow head-on. Pung, after a hit, Ling Han was immediately sent flying, while Qin Shuang laughed loudly, and he grabbed a new space to replace. Ling Han flew backward, hitting the edge of this great formation before being forced to stop. There were symbols on his chest, and it was a long time before they dimmed. He only felt that his chest was a little boiling, and his throat was itchy, wanting to vomit blood. He operated the indestructible heaven scroll, and he was actually beaten to the point of almost vomiting blood. The power of this strike was truly astonishing. This is a method created by a quasi-Empyrean, Qin Shuang laughed. When I escaped into the martial courtyard and asked He Yufeng for shelter, it was because I killed the only son of the quasi-Empyrean and avoided the limelight. Also, it just so happens that I have time to cultivate this Empyrean precious technique. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. No wonder his opponent's attack was actually able to shake the defense of the indestructible heaven scroll. It was because this was a pseudo-heavenly venerable tier treasure technique. But because it had the word accurate in it, it naturally couldn't compare to a true Empyrean paragon technique. Thus, it only shook Ling Han's chest until it began to boil. But it didn't truly injure his internal organs. This fellow was really audacious to the extreme, even daring to kill a quasi-Empyrean's only son. Ling Han scratched his head. How dare he talk about others? Wasn't he the same kind of person? Moreover, if he killed someone, he would definitely not become a slave under someone else. I've really overestimated you. You're just a lackey. His face was full of disdain. Qin Shuang was furious. He had cultivated a pseudo-heavenly venerable tier treasured technique, and was also a 9th heaven peak imperial star. He was invincible in the celestial king tier. And a mere 7th heaven celestial king actually dared to mock him like this? Die! He attacked again. Ling Han chuckled. This time, he didn't dodge at all, and when Qin Shuang approached Xiao, a black shadow suddenly shot out from his chest, heading towards Qin Shuang to greet her. Pung! A blow blasted, and Qin Shuang was instantly sent flying. Ayahu! That black shadow turned into a large dog. Who else could it be but the despicable large black dog? Want to kill Grandpa Dog's human pet? Have you asked Grandpa Dog? The large black dog stood like a human, assuming a punching posture. His iron underwear reflected light, and with his wretched face, he was extremely despicable. Ling Han couldn't help but kick out. Damn dog, who are you talking about? You're actually in the martial arts academy. Qin Shuang was shocked. He had studied Ling Han's information in detail, and knew that he was on good terms with the large black dog. But the large black dog was clearly not in the martial arts academy. So how could he suddenly appear? Grandpa Dog has amazing foresight. I know that someone wants to make a move on my little brother. So Grandpa Dog came back to kill a few such dregs. The large black dog said with his claws behind his back, looking as if he was very smart, and everything was under his control. Ling Han wanted to kick him again. It was clear that this despicable dog had failed to steal a pseudo-heavenly venerable's treasure trove, and thus fled back to the martial arts academy. He originally wanted to go to the appointment alone. In any case, with his strength, it wasn't difficult for him to leave, but the large black dog volunteered, so Ling Han brought him along. Qin Shuang frowned, but immediately revealed a confident expression. So what if there's one more? It'll just take me a little more effort. He attacked again, brandishing his saber horizontally, revealing his incomparable confidence. In front of Grandpa Dog, Dregs like you are also qualified to be arrogant. The large black dog stretched out his paw, forcefully shaking the celestial tool. Pung pung pung. After reaching the 9th heaven, one would be on par with regulations, and celestial tools only represented the highest destructive power of regulations. Thus, 9th heaven celestial kings didn't fear celestial tools at all. Under the influence of regulations, forcefully shaking a celestial tool was a piece of cake. The two 9th heaven celestial kings clashed, and it could be seen that the large black dog quickly gained the upper hand. In his last life, he had followed the heavenly venerable born fate and cultivated a supreme cultivation technique. However, due to his aptitude, he was unable to cultivate the indestructible heaven scroll, nor was he able to take the final step. However, after the heavenly venerable born fate had passed away, he had used a secret technique to bury his last life and nurture a new life in his old womb. He had truly narrowly escaped death. He had successfully lived a second life, which was different from Ji-wooming. He hadn't reincarnated. Instead, he had undergone a great rebirth based on the foundation of his previous life. This was more difficult, but the degree of qualitative change was also greater. The current large black dog's evolution index should have soared to 12, and he had an extremely high chance of pushing open the door to the heavenly venerable tier. The large black dog yelled loudly. Not only had he gained the upper hand, but he was also incessantly blabbering. He was extremely sarcastic. If Ling Han's sarcastic technique was only at the rudimentary level, then the large black dog would be at the level of great accomplishment. Qin Shuang's depression could be imagined. Not only was he going to be ravaged by the large black dog physically, but he was also going to be ravaged mentally. This caused him to feel immense pressure. After fighting for a short while, he had already lost his fighting spirit. He decided to flee. Otherwise, it was possible that he would be angered to death here. He had grasped the core of the formation, and with a single thought, the formation would immediately be withdrawn. Xiao, his figure rose, and he was about to flee. "I've been waiting for you." Ling Han smirked coldly. Pung! He exerted force in his legs and completely unleashed his body technique. He shot toward Qin Shuang like a shooting star, his divine demon sword slashing over. Qin Shuang was focused on breaking out of the encirclement, so how could he have the energy to fight with Ling Han? He pushed out a palm toward Ling Han, wanting to force him back. He didn't dare to use his full power. Otherwise, if the large black dog caught up to him, he might not be able to unleash his speed, and that would be terrible. However, when the divine demon sword slashed over, Qin Shuang suddenly realized that something was wrong. The might of this strike from Ling Han was actually more than 100 times stronger than before. How was this possible? His expression changed abruptly, but it was already too late for him to change his move or increase his strength. Shua! A sword slashed over, and one of his arms was instantly severed. The momentum of the sword did not dissipate, and it slashed across his left rib, leaving behind a deep wound. Chapter 2675. Qin Shuang screamed. This blow was too damaging to him. However, Ling Han's attack was not over yet. His left hand turned into a palm, and nine-colored light flashed, pressing toward Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang could no longer transform, and could only take it head-on. Pung with one palm pressed, Qin Shuang's whole body was blown apart. The power of this blow was not under the slash of the divine demon sword at all. Ling Han panted, but his figure did not stop, and continued to pursue with his sword. Qin Shuang was indeed bombarded by him extremely miserably. His whole body was torn apart, but his head was still intact, and he did not die. This was not a fatal wound for a celestial king. As long as Qin Shuang was given some time, he would soon be able to revive his limbs and body to restore his battle prowess. His first sword used the 9 transformations heaven art, which increased his battle prowess countless times, and the second palm used the 5-element thunder technique. Although the 2 celestial venerable treasured techniques did not operate at the same time, the interval was too short, and it still made his blood boil, extremely uncomfortable. But now was not the time to rest and reorganize. He should take advantage of the victory to pursue and destroy the enemy in one fell swoop. How could a head compete with Ling Han's speed? Ling Han caught up, and added another sword strike. Pooh! Qin Shuang's head was pierced by the divine demon sword, and his mind was broken, and he died. Ling Han withdrew his sword, and with a grab of his hands, he had already grabbed the spatial god tool on Qin Shuang's body. This formation is not bad. In the future, Grandpa Dog will no longer have to worry about someone running away. The large black dog also took away the formation control core on Qin Shuang's body, and he began to withdraw the formation. Ling Han was also interested in this formation, but he could not let the large black dog work for nothing. It would be difficult to ask for its help in the future. He probed into Qin Shuang's spatial god tool with his divine sense, and there was an alchemical pill in his hand. Although he was already a 5-star alchemist, he still could not recognize this alchemical pill, but he was sure that it overflowed with a powerful aura, even above Celestial King level Great Pill. Thinking of what Qin Shuang said before, he only made a move after receiving a Celestial Venerable Pill from Ma Yuhai. Then this was the Celestial Venerable Pill. What's the use of the Empyrean Pill? He knew it was a good thing, but he didn't know its use. What? Hurry up and give the Heavenly Sovereign Pill to Grandpa Dog. The large black dog immediately jumped over, shamelessly extending his paw. Ling Han hurriedly kept the Empyrean Dan. Get lost. You've already taken a set of formations. You still want this? We're talking about treasures after all. The more the better. The large black dog's expression was extremely shameless. It was impossible for him to feel that way. Ling Han just raised his middle finger. Only then did the large black dog say, "The Heavenly Venerate Pill is refined by extracting the blood essence of a Heavenly Venerate, then fusing it with the will of their martial art. It's a precious medicine that's extremely beneficial to even celestial kings. However, it's best to let Lord Dog consume it. It can help Lord Dog enter the celestial venerable realm faster." Ling Han just chuckled. When this damn dog spoke, its eyeballs kept rolling around. Only a ghost would believe it. He put away Qin Shuang's celestial tool, and the large black dog also helped to suppress it, grinding away the will of martial art within it, so that it could be easily devoured by the divine demon sword. In this regard, the large black dog didn't say anything. After all, whether the divine demon sword could advance into the heavenly venerable realm or not was an important matter that involved whether the heavenly venerable Fateborn could be revived. "Brat, do you want Grandpa Dog to accompany you?" the large black dog asked as he fiddled with the set of formation cornerstones that he had just obtained. This was very simple. There were only 4 pillars, but after they were buried into the ground, the area that the 4 pillars circled would become an independent area. No need. Ling Han shook his head. It was only Ma Yuhai's words, so he naturally didn't take it to heart. 1 man and 1 dog headed in opposite directions. The large black dog still had to obtain divine metal. Following the start of the cooperation with the Wang clan, the day of the divine demon sword's advancement was getting closer and closer. This also caused the large black dog to be full of motivation. Because of the long delay on the road, when Ling Han arrived at the Great Flame Mountain, the day was already almost over. He can't be here, right? On the mountain, a great many people had specially rushed over to watch the battle. However, when the moon reached the middle of the sky, and the day was only a little bit away from passing, Ling Han still hadn't appeared. That was most likely impossible. Stage fright. It can't be, right? Previously, didn't Ling Han defeat Ma Yuhai with a single strike? Why is he afraid now? I can only say that previously, Ma Yuhai was careless, and Ling Han won by luck. Now that he knows that he can't get his way twice, he has admitted defeat. Hee, who would have thought that he was actually this kind of person? Everyone was discussing spiritedly, and Ma Yuhai revealed a cold smile. Not only did he want Ling Han to die, he also wanted to redeem his own reputation. Otherwise, how could the little princess of the Wang clan possibly change her mind? He was very clear that it was impossible for Ling Han to come. If Qin Shuang made a move, Ling Han's corpse would already be lying in the wilderness. As for him, he had been waiting here under the watchful eyes of everyone. Naturally, it had nothing to do with Ling Han's death. Ma Yuhai brushed his hand and said, "Everyone, I've let everyone down. Please go back." Everyone got up one after another, and their hearts were full of contempt for Ling Han. He was actually afraid to fight. The period of 1 day is not over yet. What's the rush? A calm voice sounded. Everyone's footsteps paused. Ling Han, that's Ling Han, he finally came. Ma Yuhai's face changed dramatically. Why did Ling Han come? What about Qin Shuang? Did he not ambush anyone? If that was the case, then it was fine. Ling Han obviously wouldn't know his conspiracy. But if Qin Shuang made a move, and Ling Han still appeared here, then there would be a big problem. He couldn't stop trembling. What the hell happened? Ling Han strode forward, and came to the top of the mountain, facing Ma Yuhai. He smiled. You must be shocked to see me appear, right? Ma Yuhai forced himself to calm down. What should I be shocked about? I was the one who originally invited you to fight. You dragged your feet, and only appeared now. Ling Han stared at Ma Yuhai, and after a good few breaths' time, he finally said, You hired someone to ambush me on my way here, wanting to kill me. When I appeared alive, you must have been feeling very unsettled just now, right? What? When they heard Ling Han's words, a commotion broke out in the surrounding crowd. Was it really so? It makes sense. Otherwise, why would Ma Yuhai dare to challenge Ling Han when he obviously suffered a crushing defeat and didn't have any obvious improvement? This is too sinister. Hee. If the martial institution investigates the murderer and confesses everything, even Lord Ma Feng won't be able to protect him. At the very least, he will be expelled from the martial institution. That would be a great shame and humiliation. Ma Yuhai clenched his fists tightly. His heart was also full of apprehension. If Qin Shuang was really taken down, and confessed the fact that the two of them conspired to kill the martial institution's disciples, then he would be in trouble. Just when he was in a trance, he saw Ling Han suddenly accelerate. With a quick jump, he arrived in front of him, and then swung a fist over. Bang! Ma Yuhai was instantly sent flying by a slap. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and a few broken teeth in midair. If he hadn't been so absent-minded, he definitely wouldn't have been sent flying with a single slap. But who asked his mind to be at war at this moment? Added with the fact that Ling Han's explosive speed was really too fast, Ma Yuhai was once again sent flying by a single strike from Ling Han. He fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Just when he wanted to get up, he felt a weight on his face. He was forcefully stepped on by a foot. I'll spare your life this time, but there won't be a next time, Ling Han said in an awe-inspiring tone. He stepped on a prodigy and swept his gaze across. Everyone couldn't help but lower their heads. They didn't even dare to look at each other. Chapter 2677. Ma Yuhai was still considered a character, so not long after he paid his respects, He Yufeng still received him. There's no need for flattery. I'm already tired of hearing it, He Yufeng said indifferently, very directly. Ma Yuhai was a bit embarrassed, but the other party was on the same level as his father, so how could he dare to have any objections? He hurriedly said, Young master, something happened. What is it? He Yufeng walked towards him. Ma Yuhai immediately felt a lot of pressure. This was a quasi-Empyrean, and just a glance almost made him collapse. He adjusted his state of mind and said, Young master, his servant, Lady Qin Shuang, might have been killed. He Yufeng's gaze sharpened, and Ma Yuhai immediately sat on the ground. This was the true power of a quasi-Empyrean. How do you know? He Yufeng retracted her gaze and said indifferently, Qin Shuang was just a dog of his. He naturally didn't care whether she was alive or dead. But no matter what, she was also his person. If she was really killed by someone, this so-called beating the dog also needs the owner. He naturally wouldn't let it go. Ma Yuhai had already made up a bunch of lies, but with He Yufeng's words, those lies all ran away to the horizon. He quickly told the truth in full detail, and did not dare to add any embellishments. After He Yufeng finished listening, she couldn't help but sneer. You're quite bold, daring to even murder a disciple of the martial arts institution. Ma Yuhai had just gotten up from the ground, but when he heard this, he was so scared that he sat down again. So what if he was a peak 8th heaven super emperor star? In front of a quasi-Empyrean, he was completely like an ant. Qin Shuang died because of you. Break your arms and stay at volcano-piercing cloud for another year, He Yufeng said again. Ma Yuhai didn't dare to have any objections. He hurriedly nodded, but his face was filled with fear. Severing his arms was still manageable, but Mount Puyan was a dangerous place in the frost plain. That terrifying flame could even melt a mortal metal easily. If he had to stay in the mountain for a year, it could be imagined how dangerous it would be. It would also make him suffer greatly. But did he dare to say no? A quasi-Empyrean was no longer bound by any rules. If He Yufeng was unhappy, so what if she killed him with a slap? Yes, Ma Yuhai said respectfully. Ling Han dared to kill my servant, so I'll make him pay the price, said He Yufeng. Ma Yuhai was overjoyed. If a quasi-Empyrean wanted to deal with Ling Han, then no matter how monstrous he was, it would all be useless. Whether he lived or died depended on a single thought from He Yufeng. What are you waiting for? He Yufeng said unhappily. Ma Yuhai quickly turned and left. If he angered a quasi-Empyrean, there would be no good consequences for him. He had seen peak heavenly geniuses rely on their talent and background to show the slightest bit of disrespect in front of his father, and the result was that they would be smashed to pieces. An Empyrean was an existence that surpassed the rules. Even a quasi-Empyrean was high and aloof, the might of the heavens inviolable. The Wang family sent over a large amount of resources, including many heavenly materials and earthly treasures. After glancing over them, Ling Han couldn't help but smile in satisfaction. This way, his undying immortal king physique should be able to cultivate to the 9th level. He went into seclusion for this, and 3 months later, he succeeded. I finally completed it. The complete indestructible celestial king body. Ling Han laughed heartily. His defenses had become so powerful that they wouldn't break even if a 9th heaven celestial king attacked him at full power. Even a celestial tool, a peak stage 9th heaven emperor star, or a super emperor star would only be able to inflict light injuries on his body. Unfortunately, it's still a bit far from the undying immortal gold physique. Even if I concoct pills like before, it'll probably take 10,000 years to gather enough resources. But the Wang family's accumulated celestial medicines have all been refined by me. Even if they can search everywhere, how can they keep up with my pill concoction speed? Come, to achieve the undying immortal gold physique, it'll be at least 100 million years later. He came out of seclusion, and just as he sat down, he saw Zhu Xian'er come over with an invitation, saying, "Husband, you have work to do again." "What work?" Ling Han asked casually. He Yufeng's banquet. Zhu Xian'er waved the invitation in her hand. "What He Yufeng? I don't know him." Ling Han shook his head. "Husband, he's not some random person, but a pseudo-heavenly venerable that has just broken through," Zhu Xian'er said seriously. He Yufeng's father is a 4th step heavenly venerable. Now, who knows how many people in the Martial Arts Academy are honored to receive He Yufeng's invitation. Unfortunately, the number of invitations sent out is extremely limited. Only true geniuses and heavenly venerable heirs have such qualifications. Ling Han thought for a moment, and suddenly came to a realization. So it's this He Yufeng. "Husband, do you know him?" Zhu Xian'er asked curiously. Ling Han shook his head. "I don't know him, but I killed one of his subordinates." Zhu Xian'er could only roll her eyes. They hadn't even met this person, yet he'd already drawn hatred. Probably only she, her husband, had this kind of ability, right? "Then it's better if husband doesn't attend this banquet," she said. Ling Han shook his head. "Since he invited me, why shouldn't I go?" But Zhu Xian'er wanted to say more, but when she saw the trace of tenacity hidden under Ling Han's indifferent expression, she knew that further persuasion was useless. However, this was the Martial Arts Academy, after all, so He Yufeng wouldn't dare to do anything, right? He Yufeng's banquet was set for 7 days later. It had already been more than half a year since he officially became a pseudo-heavenly venerable. So why did he delay holding the banquet so late? That was because becoming a pseudo-heavenly venerable was a major event. Even in a super high-level world like the Frost Flame Plane, normally only 1 or 2 could appear in an epoch. Of course, now that geniuses from all sides gathered here, and the geniuses of the entire origin world were here, the frequency of pseudo-heavenly venerables appearing was much higher. In an epoch, there could even be over 100. On average, there would be one in more than 100 billion years, which was still pitifully few. Such a grand event obviously had to invite big shots from all sides. However, because the heavenly venerables were all fighting against the frenzy in the foreign realm battlefield, and in their eyes, pseudo-heavenly venerables weren't considered heavenly venerables and weren't on equal footing with them, they naturally wouldn't condescend to come. Even so, He Yufeng's cave abode was also filled with ninth heaven celestial kings. If he wasn't a ninth heaven celestial king, then he definitely had the backing of a heavenly venerable. Otherwise, he wouldn't be qualified to appear here at all. Ling Han asked around, and among the people around him, only the large black dog received an invitation. He and the large black dog came to the mountain where He Yufeng was. Invitation. The one sitting at the foot of the mountain was actually a ninth heaven celestial king. After he received an invitation from a human and a dog, he smiled at them and let them go up the mountain. Brat, everyone else has a carriage instead of walking. Only the two of us are walking. The large black dog looked at the carriages that flew past and couldn't help but complain to Ling Han. Grandpa Dog is a ninth heaven celestial king, standing at the peak of the celestial Tao. You can't be so disgraced. Are you trying to say that we should go back and get a carriage before coming back? There's no need to go through so much trouble, brat. It's fine as long as you lie on the ground and be my mount, the large black dog said, licking his lips. Scram. Chapter 2678. Those who could receive He Yufeng's invitation were definitely wealthy and respectable. They either had a celestial venerable in their clan, or their own strength and talent were incredibly astonishing. Thus, they all sat in handsome carriages. These were only used when rushing to important occasions. Firstly, it showed respect to the owner, and secondly, it could also show off their status. Ling Han and the large black dog arrived at a person with an extremely extravagant appearance. His steed was actually an old bull formed from divine metal. It was only the size of a palm, and it seemed to be walking slowly, but it could cover an endless distance with a single step. It was extremely astonishing. This made Ling Han and the large black dog want nothing more than to rush up and rob it. But when they thought that this was the martial arts academy, they finally restrained themselves. Though there were some others with grand appearances, they could not compare to this master. I wonder who he is. Ling Han was curious. The large black dog scratched his head with his paw. Come, let's go knock him out. Ling Han rolled his eyes at it. Divine metal was incredibly rare in the first place, and divine metal was sentient, and could take the form of a beast, so that was even rarer. The owner of this carriage had to be incredibly extraordinary. If he went to sneak up on him, wasn't he afraid of being beaten up instead? If you want to go, you go. He shook his head decisively. The large black dog was just saying it, and did not continue to clamor. Very soon, the man and the dog arrived at the peak of the mountain. Now there were all kinds of carriages parked outside, but though the carriage pulled by that golden bull was incredibly small, it was incredibly eye-catching. That was because there was not a single carriage in the surroundings that dared to approach it. They all maintained a sufficient distance, making it seem like a crane among chickens. That made sense. Even if it was only at the first heaven, its defense had already reached the peak stage of the celestial king tier. And it was indestructible. Just think about it. It knew from birth how difficult it was to deal with this person. But now, a powerful being formed from divine metal was actually acting as a transport for someone. So how powerful was the person behind it? Which family is it? Not only were Ling Han and the large black dog curious, but many people at the entrance of the cave were also discussing spiritedly. They had never seen this carriage before, and were all guessing who the owner of the carriage was, or in other words, which descendant of a celestial venerable had come this time. Some people had already entered the cave, while others were calling their friends outside, wanting to enter in groups. Ling Han! Someone called out. Ling Han raised his head. This was a person he had never seen before, but he knew who it was. Back when he was fighting with Tiansheng, he had sensed this person's aura. Amu, he said. Not bad. Amu nodded. He wasn't surprised that Ling Han had recognized him. He had been famous in the Martial Arts Institute for more than 10 billion years, and his information had long been known by everyone. So it didn't matter if Ling Han recognized him now. Haha, He Yufeng has already stepped into the quasi-Empyrean realm. We have to hurry. Another voice sounded. Du Shi appeared. His figure was tall and sturdy, and he exuded a domineering aura. Perhaps junior apprentice brother Ling Han will catch up and become a quasi-Empyrean first. Elder Waning Moon also appeared. His expression was cold, and those who didn't know would think he had a problem with him. The appearance of the three giants immediately attracted the attention of the audience. The large black dog naturally wouldn't back down in this kind of situation. He puffed out his chest and sucked in his stomach as he waved his paw at the people around him. It was as if he were an important figure. Greetings to the three of you. Ling Han cupped his hands in greeting to the three giants. The three giants were very polite to him. All of them were arrogant, and they wouldn't even take a peak stage 9th heaven celestial king seriously. However, once they proved that they could stand on equal footing with them in the future, they would also put down their arrogance and become relatively amiable and approachable. Ling Han had already proved that he had the qualifications to become a celestial venerable in the future. It was only a matter of time. Thus, the three giants naturally accepted him. Although the large black dog was unreliable and extremely showy, he indeed had the qualifications to become a celestial venerable. Similarly, the three giants didn't dare to slight him. Moreover, he was already a 9th heaven celestial king. No matter what, he wasn't inferior to the three giants. Humph! With a cold humph, the Imperial Void Celestial King appeared. He wasn't alone, and he had even brought his son with him. Old fart, what are you humphing about? Before Ling Han could say anything, the large black dog flew into a rage first. He naturally hated the Imperial Void Celestial King to the bone. He bared his sharp teeth and breathed out hot air. A beast dares to insult my father. Woody immediately jumped out. In his heart, his father was the #1 celestial king in the world, and he was invincible. Now even a black dog dared to insult his father to his face. He naturally couldn't tolerate this. A mere 3rd heaven celestial king. Don't ask for trouble, Ling Han said calmly. In the martial arts academy, experts couldn't attack those 2 heavens below them. However, this didn't mean that the weaker party could take the initiative to provoke them. Otherwise, the fight would be pointless. In this world, strength was king. Now that Woody had taken the initiative to provoke a 9th heaven celestial king, he deserved to be beaten half to death. Nothing would happen to the large black dog. Woody clearly knew this, but he still dared to act like this. It was naturally because his father was standing behind him. Ling Han. Woody looked at Ling Han. He couldn't help but raise his brows, unable to restrain his anger. He had walked the celestial king's path with the intention of becoming a perfect celestial seed. However, he had been forced by Ling Han, and had no choice but to break through and advance. He had no chance of becoming a perfect celestial seed. This naturally caused him to harbor hatred in his heart. However, his own battle prowess was far inferior to Ling Han's. So how could he have the chance to avenge his humiliation? Now that he had met his enemy, his eyes were naturally filled with hatred. However, Ling Han didn't even look at him. This kind of trash was no longer worthy of his attention. If they weren't in the martial arts academy, he would have directly slapped him to death. He stared at the Imperial Void Celestial King, and calmly said, "If you don't control your son's foul mouth, I'm going to smash it to pieces." The Imperial Void Celestial King couldn't help but sneer. Ling Han, you really are arrogant. Do you think that just because you've advanced to the 7th heaven, you have the right to stand against me? Old ghost, what are you being so fierce for? Don't you know that this brat is under Grandpa Dog's protection? The large black dog jumped out, pointing at the Imperial Void Celestial King provocatively. The Imperial Void Celestial King was extremely disdainful. Loser, I alone can suppress the 2 of you. The large black dog roared loudly and brazenly attacked. The Imperial Void Celestial King faltered for a moment. In his mind, the large black dog was a standard coward. So how could he dare to take the initiative to attack him? With this thought in mind, he naturally wouldn't allow the large black dog to attack him. His right hand clenched into a fist, and he punched toward the large black dog. boundless regulations condensed on his fist, and the might of this punch was astonishing. Pung! The two of them clashed with their fists, and their bodies instantly trembled, and they retreated a few steps. Boom! A terrifying shockwave surged out, and the people in the vicinity were all sent flying like straw. Fortunately, those who could come here today were either extremely powerful themselves, or had heavenly venerable tier backgrounds. How could it be that they didn't have life-saving treasures on them? All of a sudden, all kinds of lights flashed chaotically, and a terrifying aura that surpassed the Great Tao swept out. Ling Han, Du Shi, and the others naturally didn't care in the slightest. If the Imperial Void Celestial King, or the large black dog launched an attack toward them, then they would definitely have to dodge or parry. However, if it was only the shockwave, it was nothing. Ha! The Imperial Void Celestial King revealed an expression of surprise, because this attack from the large black dog was actually not inferior to his in the slightest. Chapter 2679. Old bastard, you didn't expect Grandpa Dog to be so fierce, did you? The large black dog was very proud of himself, as he twisted his bottom. His iron underwear was still reflecting light. The Imperial Void Celestial King was enraged, and even Ling Han and the others felt as if their eyes had been blinded. Strange, the Imperial Void Celestial King muttered. At their level, they might only be able to increase their strength by a little bit after an epoch. But how long had it been? The large black dog was actually on par with him. This improvement was too shocking, and it was completely unrealistic. This was natural. The large black dog was strong not because his cultivation had increased, or because he had suddenly comprehended something. Instead, it was because Ling Han had passed the 9 transformations heaven scroll to him. Now, the large black dog had comprehended and fused 4 parts of it. This naturally caused his battle prowess to increase greatly, and he was now on par with the Imperial Void Celestial King. Moreover, although the complete Celestial Paragon technique was more powerful, it also consumed a lot of energy. Even a 9th Heaven Celestial King could not continuously use it. However, it was different if the Celestial Paragon technique was broken down. With the large black dog's cultivation level, it was completely possible for him to continuously use it. Again, the large black dog was not at a disadvantage after a single strike, so he was naturally not willing to give up. How could he stop? The Imperial Void Celestial King humphed coldly. He naturally would not back down. The battle between the 2 great Celestial Kings caused massive destruction. Ling Han looked at Yu Wuti and did not say anything. He was like a hungry wolf staring at a little white rabbit. Yu Wuti felt a chill in his heart, and he could not help but retreat step by step. When he retreated until he collided with a broken pillar, he suddenly came to his senses, and his face instantly became bright red. That's enough, the 2 of you. Today is my young master's big day, so please show some respect to him, a voice said, and a powerful aura spread. The Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog exchanged another 3 strikes before stopping. The one who had stopped the fight was a 9th Heaven Celestial King, but he was only a monarch tier, and was not taken seriously by the Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog. However, he was speaking on behalf of a pseudo-celestial lord, so they still had to give him some face. Old geezer, I'll beat you up every time I see you in the future, the large black dog said as he pointed at the Imperial Void Celestial King. The Imperial Void Celestial King almost exploded in fury. It's not like you fucking had the upper hand, so why are you speaking so confidently? He wasn't originally so easily enraged, but the large black dog's appearance was really too enraging. His entire body was radiating an aura of despicableness, and it was really impossible for him not to be angry. Du Shi let out a long sigh and said, "If anyone tells me again that junior brother Ling and brother Black Dog came from a super low-class realm, I'll definitely get angry with that person." Amu couldn't help but laugh in spite of himself. Indeed, which low-level plane could suddenly produce peerless prodigies like Ling Han, Tiansheng, the Imperial Void Celestial King, the large black dog, the fire hibiscus, and Ji Wuming? All of them could possibly become celestial paragons. Was this super low-level plane about to explode? Humph! The imperial void celestial king called for his son to enter his abode. Before entering, he glared fiercely at Ling Han and the large black dog, especially at Ling Han. Previously, he hadn't been able to deal with him in the celestial realm, and as a result, this little brat had obtained space to grow. Now he was almost on par with him. Unfortunately, it was too late for regrets. Ling Han also entered the abode with Amu and the others. He knew that He Yufeng definitely didn't invite him over for anything good, but even if he could hide now, he couldn't hide forever. He had to face things eventually, and running away was useless. Thus he had come. The banquets were all the same. They would eat and drink, and then make some friends. The Wang clan had also come. And it wasn't just the little princess of the Wang clan. Two heavyweight figures, Wang Qianyang and Wang Yangming, had also come, giving He Yufeng enough face. Now Wang Yangming's attitude towards Ling Han was even more cordial than Wang Qianyang's. Once they arrived, Ling Han pulled Wang Jiayue over and said, "Young friend Ling, long time no see. How long could it be?" Ling Han chuckled and said, "Greetings, seniors Wang." As for Wang Jiayue, of course he ignored her. Wang Jiayue snorted. This man actually dared to reject her, which made her angry and unconvinced. Amu and the other two heavyweights had their own circles, so naturally, they couldn't always accompany Ling Han. Seeing the Wang clan come, they smiled and said their goodbyes. Ling Han, Wang Qianyang, and Wang Yangming chatted, and it was inevitable that they would talk about He Yufeng. This boy is really monstrous. It has only been 30 billion years, and he has already stepped into the quasi-celestial venerable realm. This kind of result can be ranked in the top 3 in the recent epoch. Wang Qianyang was very emotional. This old man has lived for 3 epochs, but I still have no hope of becoming a celestial venerable. This comparison really makes one sigh. Although the peak of the 9th heaven was only separated by a thin line from the quasi-celestial venerable realm, if one couldn't sense the unique power in the world, no matter how talented one was, after 100 epochs, one could only stay at the celestial king realm. Wang Yangming wasn't convinced. He said, "My Andy isn't much worse. He just used 40 billion years to step into the quasi-celestial venerable realm." Wang Qianyang also had a proud expression. He Yufeng was able to step into the quasi-celestial venerable realm so quickly because his father was a 4th-step celestial venerable. Otherwise, He Yufeng's time to break into the quasi-celestial venerable realm wouldn't be any shorter than his peerless genius. Ling Han only smiled. He was too embarrassed to say that he could already sense Suzy's energy and could draw it to temper his own body. From a certain aspect, he was already a pseudo-heavenly venerable now, though he had been weakened countless times. Even his battle prowess was barely at the peak stage of the 9th heaven. Even if he didn't boast, no one would believe him anyway. A 7th-level quasi-celestial venerable realm. Haha. More and more people came. Ling Han kept looking for the owner of the golden immortal ox carriage, but no matter who he asked, they all shook their heads. They didn't know that such a powerful person had come to the banquet. This person was too low-key. When the moon was high in the sky, someone suddenly shouted, "The young master has arrived!" Suddenly, everyone quieted down and rushed to the exit of the inner yard. A young man soon appeared. He was tall and slender, and had a handsome face. His aura was restrained, and he looked like an ordinary person. However, if one took a second look, they would notice that he was different from the others. However, if one had to describe what was different about him, there were no words that could describe it. He Yufeng, who had just broken through to the quasi-celestial venerable realm. Bullshit, the large black dog snorted. Ling Han also nodded, but was a little surprised, because He Yufeng had broken through less than half a year ago, yet she had already controlled her aura, obviously stabilizing her cultivation level. From this point, it could be seen how freakish she was. He Yufeng was elegant, and he raised his cup and invited everyone to drink with him. He spoke very politely, and didn't put on the airs of a quasi-celestial venerable. Everyone gradually let go of their worries, and the banquet became lively again. "Which one is Ling Han?" He Yufeng suddenly asked. Suddenly, everyone became silent again, and they all looked towards Ling Han. Ling Han pretended he didn't hear them, and slowly sipped his wine. He Yufeng walked over and said, "That servant of mine, was he killed by you?" When she said this, everyone was in an uproar. When did this happen? Ling Han was too fierce. He even dared to touch He Yufeng's servant. That's right. From the results, I did kill him. Ling Han nodded readily. Chapter 2681. The large black dog's goal was very simple: to lure He Yufeng away and create a chance for Ling Han to escape. Unfortunately, He Yufeng did not fall for it. His attack hit empty air, and he very casually withdrew his hand, his eyes still fixed on Ling Han. Seeing this, the large black dog immediately ran back and shouted at the door, "Dead fish-eyed brat. Why don't you come after Grandpa Dog? Are you afraid? Come, come, Grandpa Dog will not bully you. How about I let you use one hand and one leg?" He withdrew one front paw and one back paw, and stood on his own. This was very mocking, and He Yufeng couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth, and he couldn't help but slap at the large black dog. Hong, the power surged, extremely terrifying. Grandpa Dog is leaving again. Shwa, the large black dog broke into a run extremely fast. Before he had cultivated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, his strength was speed, and this was his true life-saving skill. He Yufeng's attack hit empty air, and before he could say anything, the large black dog appeared again. He stuck his head out at the door and said, "Did you miss Grandpa Dog? Grandpa Dog is back again." He Yufeng's eyes were burning with anger. He was determined to deal with Ling Han, not only because his subordinates had been killed, but also because he wanted to establish his might. As the saying went, a new official had to show off his might. He had just become a celestial venerable, so he naturally had to establish his might and announce his rise to everyone. The Wang clan wanted to stop him, so he pushed them down without hesitation. A large black dog wanted to stop him, so he immediately attacked. But the problem was that he didn't succeed. How is this damn dog's speed so fast? He Yufeng decided to ignore it. Although Ling Han's cultivation level was the lowest, he had already said before that either Ling Han kneeled down and submitted to him, and become his slave, or he would be killed by him. How could a dignified quasi-celestial venerable go back on his words? He stared at Ling Han, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Dead fish eyes, what's the point of bullying a seventh heaven brat? If you have the guts, fight 300 rounds with Grandpa Dog. The large black dog hurriedly shouted. This time, He Yufeng completely ignored him. He reached out, pressing down on Ling Han. Even if Ling Han was faster than an ordinary ninth firmament immortal king, how could he dodge the attack of a quasi-heavenly venerate? Hong, as soon as this palm was unleashed, it already appeared before Ling Han. The green palm was like a millstone, capable of obliterating all celestial kings. Ling Han gave a loud shout, channeling the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. He had already cultivated the indestructible celestial king body to the level of great accomplishment, which gave him the confidence to receive this blow. Bam! The palm pressed down, instantly causing the entire cave to shake violently. A great battle between immortal kings could destroy this cave abode, let alone a quasi-empyrean. He Yufeng certainly wouldn't destroy her own cave abode. She grabbed out with her left hand and extinguished the shockwaves in time, only causing the cave abode to tremble. As the dust settled, a golden figure appeared in front of Ling Han. When the golden light dimmed, the large black dog's figure was revealed. Just now, it rushed out in time to block He Yufeng's attack. Impressive! A ninth firmament celestial king can actually block the attack of a quasi-heavenly venerate? It hurts so much, Grandpa Dog. Just as everyone was sighing emotionally, the large black dog suddenly sat on the ground and loudly cried out in pain. This immediately caused everyone's impression of him, which had just changed, to fall back into the abyss of despicability. This was a despicable dog, and it couldn't be changed. The large black dog wasn't as miserable as he appeared. He had also cultivated the indestructible celestial king body, and had actively channeled the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. With his ninth firmament cultivation level, the might of this channeling would definitely surpass that of Ling Han. This blow would at most cause his internal organs to tremble slightly. He Yufeng's expression finally became troubled. Was it so difficult for him to kill a 7th firmament celestial king? He had just broken through to the quasi-heavenly venerate, and this was the time when he was in high spirits. Why did so many people have to oppose him? Ling Han had to die, he had to die. He humphed. The large black dog could stop him once, but could he stop him 100 times? Or even 1,000 times? If a quasi-heavenly venerate wanted to kill someone, could a 9th firmament celestial king stop him? I also want to ask brother he to give me some face and stop here. How about it? A sweet voice suddenly sounded. It was like the spring breeze in March, immediately melting the ice and making everyone feel comfortable all over. He Yufeng became even more uncomfortable. He only wanted to kill a 7th firmament celestial king. So why was there always someone opposing him? He looked over at the person who had spoken, and his eyes instantly narrowed slightly. This was a young girl with an elegant appearance. Although she couldn't be considered to be extremely beautiful, she made one feel comfortable just by looking at her. She was like a light chrysanthemum that was worth carefully savoring. However, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that he hadn't even noticed the existence of this girl before. He was a dignified quasi-heavenly venerate, and his divine intent was extremely powerful. Yet he had actually missed a person. How should I address you, young lady? He Yufeng asked in a low voice. Although this young girl didn't reveal any aura, he couldn't help but feel a sense of wariness in his heart. The girl smiled warmly and said, Lin Piao Shui. Lin Piao Shui. Everyone looked at each other, and then shook their heads. They had never heard of this name. Little Han, we don't have to run anymore. This girl seems to be very powerful, the large black dog said in a low voice as he moved closer to Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. Although this girl's aura wasn't obvious, she gave him an incredibly dangerous feeling. He Yufeng frowned slightly. This girl only gave him her name, but didn't say anything about her background or cultivation level. This was equivalent to saying nothing. He hesitated for a moment, and then asked, Why does young lady Lin want to protect this person? Oh, my father likes this person, so he asked me to make a trip and bring him home. I'll lend him a hand and raise his cultivation level a little, Lin Piao Shui said in an extremely casual manner. However, in the eyes of everyone who heard this, they were all stunned. Ling Han was already at the 7th firmament, so how could it be easy to raise his cultivation level a little? Yet Lin Piao Shui spoke, as if it was a simple matter. Fuck, what did your family do? And who was your father? She must be bragging. He Yufeng didn't believe it either. He calmly asked, And who is your father? Lin Piao Shui smiled warmly. Right now, I'm asking for Brother He's face, and it has nothing to do with my father. That depends on whether you have the ability or not. He Yufeng finally decided to make a move. After he became a pseudo-heavenly venerable, if he couldn't even accomplish the first thing he said, it would be too shameful. Hong, he still stretched out his hand, which turned into a limestone millstone. Lin Piao Shui wasn't the large black dog, so she naturally wouldn't dodge. Instead, she stretched out a jade finger and pointed at the sky. A black light flashed, and the millstone in the sky immediately shattered. Hong, with this move, her aura could no longer be concealed, and it surged out like a tsunami. Pseudo-heavenly venerable. Heavens, another pseudo-heavenly venerable. How come I've never seen such a person in the martial arts academy? Moreover, she isn't a pseudo-heavenly venerable that has just broken through. She has an iron-blooded murderous aggressiveness. She broke through in the outer realm battlefield, or she's already fought bloody battles there for countless years. Everyone was shocked. This was also a pseudo-heavenly venerable, and it was very likely that she was more powerful than He Yufeng. Lin Piao Shui's face was full of a gentle smile, and her bearing was graceful. Brother He, can you give me some face? Chapter 2682. This was the second time Lin Piao Shui had said the same thing. The first time, He Yufeng was just curious and a little fearful, but the second time he said it, he felt a chill in his heart. Although it was only one move, he had already seen the gap between him and Lin Piao Shui. He couldn't wait, because he had relied on the accumulation of resources and a long period of secluded cultivation to break through to the quasi-celestial master level. Of course, his talent was also there. Otherwise, no amount of resources, and a long period of cultivation would be in vain. But the other party had broken through in a bloody battle. The will of martial art couldn't be faked, and it was full of blood and killing. In comparison, he was a flower seedling in a greenhouse, and the other party was a tree that had experienced a storm. If the two fought, he would be defeated. He just lacked experience. If he could fight more with a quasi-celestial master, his combat strength would definitely improve rapidly, and he wouldn't lose to the other party. But now he couldn't beat her. Therefore he had to give her face. Just like before, he could ignore the rules of the martial arts academy, deal with whoever he wanted, and even openly say that he would kill Ling Han. Why could he be so arrogant? His strength was still the same now. His strength was not as good as Lin Piaoshue's, so he had to admit defeat. Otherwise, so what if Lin Piaoshue made a move and beat him up? A quasi-celestial master was just a quasi-celestial master. In front of an existence of the same level, he had to be fearful and even lower his head. For Miss Lin's sake, I will spare this boy this time. He glanced at Ling Han, his eyes flashing with a cold light. This person had made him lose face, so naturally he was furious. This time he couldn't kill. But next time, Lin Piaoshue couldn't stay by Ling Han's side all the time, right? Tomorrow he would kill him. Get lost. He waved his hand at Ling Han. Out of sight, out of mind. Everyone sighed. Ling Han was really blessed. First, he had the Wang family to take care of him. Then he had the protection of an expert like the Black Dog. And finally, he had the help of a mysterious quasi-celestial master. Which seventh heaven celestial king would have such face? No one felt that Ling Han was wronged. What was there to be wronged about? Even a quasi-emperor was forced to stop. Your face is really reaching the heavens. After this incident, Ling Han's reputation would definitely rise to another level, although it was because of others. Ling Han moved. But contrary to everyone's expectations, he didn't turn around and leave. On the contrary, he strode towards He Yufeng. Only when the two of them were 10 feet apart did he stop and say, "Although I am only a mere 7th heavenly layer, and cannot possibly be a match for a quasi-empyrean, when an ordinary man is angered, blood will splash 3 feet. He said these words in a very low voice, stirring up the anger that he had been suppressing for most of the day, causing everyone to involuntarily be moved. But what do you want to do challenging a quasi-empyrean? Ling Han paused for a moment before replying. I would like to exchange 10 moves with Celestial Venerable He. When these words were spoken, everyone was astounded. Many people even wondered if there was something wrong with their ears to hear such inconceivable words. A 7th firmament immortal king was actually challenging a quasi-heavenly venerable? His but powerhouses like Du Shi and Amu revealed looks of admiration. Just as Ling Han had said, when an ordinary man is angered, blood will splash 3 feet. If Ling Han swallowed this insult, that would be a wise move, but he would be classified as inferior by them. Although they wouldn't look down on him, they wouldn't treat him as a close friend either. 10 moves powerful and resounding. I am a 7th heavenly layer, so naturally, I am not a match for a quasi-empyrean. But I have my pride. I will not let a quasi-empyrean bully me and humiliate me. Lin Piaofeng's beautiful eyes also lit up. Although she had stepped forward to help Ling Han, it was only because she had received orders from her father. She didn't have any good feelings for Ling Han, nor did she have any ill feelings. She just didn't have any feelings for him when she saw him on the street. But now she somewhat understood why a powerful person like her father would treat Ling Han so seriously. Just this courage alone was definitely worth her trip. She was very interested. She wanted to know whether Ling Han was really acting out of the rage of a common man, or whether he had been blinded by his anger, and had thus overestimated his own abilities and issued a challenge, or whether he was really confident that he could withstand 10 moves from He Yufeng. The one who was the most angry was, of course, He Yufeng. A dignified quasi-heavenly venerable was actually being challenged by a 7th firmament immortal king. Of course, he could slap Ling Han to death with one slap, but an immortal king dared to challenge a quasi-heavenly venerable. To his dignity, it was tantamount to a ruthless stab and scrape. He took a deep breath, and then said, "You really are a guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. Fine, I'll allow you to make 9 consecutive moves, And when the 10th move comes, I'll let you know fear. He made up his mind to kill Ling Han on the 10th move, not giving Lin Piaoshui the chance to save him. There was no other way. Who asked this kid to challenge a quasi-heavenly venerable? The might of a heavenly venerable couldn't be offended. Ling Han smiled faintly. He didn't draw out the divine demon sword. Instead, he shook his hands and clenched them into fists, activating the 9 transformations heaven scroll. His battle prowess was madly rising. His current battle prowess had reached the peak stage of the 9th heaven, and with the 9 transformations heaven scroll, at least in this short period of time, his battle prowess could rival a peak stage 9th heaven super emperor star, or even be stronger. Die! He rushed out, his fists pounding furiously. So what if he was only a 7th heaven celestial king? He didn't have a temper, and could be humiliated by others. Moreover, 2 elites of the Wang clan had been injured by He Yufeng because of him. The large black dog had also almost been severely injured. Why did innocent people have to be implicated? Just because he was strong. Pung pung pung. Ling Han punched out furiously with his fists, his tremendous power soaring into the sky. Everyone was stunned. Was this really a 7th heaven celestial king? Why did it feel like he was even stronger than a 9th heaven celestial king? However, what was even more terrifying was He Yufeng. He clasped his hands behind his back, and no matter how furious Ling Han was, it didn't matter. He was like an unmoving boulder, and this was enough to make one despair. This was a quasi-heavenly venerate. He had surpassed the level of celestial kings, and the level of regulations, and had risen to a height that celestial kings could only look up to. Is that all you've got? He Yufeng sneered. Lin Piaoshui shook her head inwardly. Ling Han's current battle prowess was indeed extraordinary. If his cultivation was at the 9th heaven, then after activating this secret technique, it really was possible for him to injure a quasi-heavenly venerate. However, Ling Han was only at the 7th heaven after all. This kind of attack could make any 9th heaven celestial king wary, and they wouldn't even dare to take it head-on. However, it was still far from enough to deal with a quasi-heavenly venerate. 7 moves, 8 moves, 9 moves. He Yufeng smiled calmly, and waved a palm in Ling Han's direction. "Aunt, take a strike from this sovereign as well." Boom! This attack was so powerful that heaven and earth were about to collapse. Lin Piaoshui wasn't in a good position to make a move. It was Ling Han who had said that they would fight 10 moves. If he was killed by He Yufeng, then he would be asking for it. How could a heavenly venerate tolerate such provocation? Ling Han had no intention of retreating. He roared loudly, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. His face was filled with determination, and his right fist turned into a palm. 9-colored immortal lightning flashed, and he ruthlessly struck toward He Yufeng. Pa pa pa. As this palm struck out, his right arm began to explode. All his blood vessels exploded at the same time, and his flesh and skin flew everywhere, leaving behind only piles of white bones. There was no going back. The rage of an ordinary man. Chapter 2683. A Beautiful Romance. Why did Ling Han's arm explode with just one 5-elemental thunder technique? It was very simple. That was, not only did he circulate the 5-elemental thunder technique, but he also used the 9 transformations heaven scripture to activate its power. It was impossible to circulate the celestial sovereign technique at the same time. A celestial king would not be able to withstand such great power. If it was a few days ago, Ling Han would not have dared to act so recklessly. But now that his indestructible celestial king physique had reached great success, and his physique was only slightly weaker than celestial gold, it gave him the confidence and courage to do so. Although he was an ordinary man, his anger could make a celestial sovereign spill blood. Kill! Ling Han charged over in a grandiose manner, and did not turn back. He Yufeng finally revealed a look of caution. He was proud, but he would never be blindly arrogant. When Ling Han's attack was launched, his first reaction was to avoid it. But who was he? A dignified quasi-celestial sovereign actually had to avoid the attack of a level 7. How could he endure this? Moreover, if he avoided this attack, Ling Han would really have to make 10 moves. A level 7 boasted in front of a quasi-celestial sovereign, saying that he could make 10 moves. In the end, he really made it come true. Would he, a quasi-celestial sovereign, still have the face to live in the future? He couldn't dodge. He had to take it head-on and kill Ling Han. He Yufeng snorted coldly. His hands were wrapped in a green brilliance, emitting a pressure that far exceeded the Celestial King realm, and pressed toward Ling Han. The collision this time was earth-shattering. Amu, Du Shi, and the other giants all turned pale. They thought to themselves that if they were to take a blow from Ling Han or He Yufeng, they would only be seriously injured. The only countermeasure was to avoid it. Taking it head-on would be making things difficult for themselves. But it was reasonable for He Yufeng to be so powerful. Why was Ling Han so awesome? Unbelievable, unimaginable, unacceptable. Even Lin Piaoxue revealed a look of surprise. She nodded secretly in her heart. Ling Han was able to launch such an attack. He really lived up to his bold words. When an ordinary man is angry, blood can be spilled 5 paces away. Boom. The attacks unleashed by the two powerful cultivators finally collided, forming a huge explosion that surpassed the rules. Lin Piaoxue hurriedly took action, suppressing the aftershocks of the attacks. Otherwise, if these aftershocks of the battle were to wreak havoc, it was unknown how many people would be affected, and most of them would definitely die. Although Lin Piaoxue had neutralized most of the impact, some small ripples still overflowed, causing many people to vomit blood and break their bones. They were all shocked. If even a small aftershock could cause such damage, how terrifying would the impact be for the two people at the center of the battle? When the smoke and dust dispersed, Ling Han was still standing in the same place. However, his right arm had been completely destroyed, leaving only piles of white bones. His entire upper body had no flesh and blood, leaving only a skeleton. However, he still stood firmly. His eyes emitted a soaring battle intent, like an unsheathed peerless divine sword. As for He Yufeng, he still maintained the posture of pressing out with his right hand, and his condition was much better than Ling Han's. His clothes were neat and tidy, and he seemed to have not suffered any injuries. There was only a gash in the center of his right palm that was dripping with blood. Seeing this scene, everyone was so shocked that their scalps went numb. He Yufeng was injured. He Yufeng was actually injured. A quasi-heavenly venerate had actually been injured by a 7th firmament immortal king, causing him to bleed. Heavens! The crowd didn't care how serious Ling Han's injuries were, or how much he had paid. All they knew was that a quasi-heavenly venerable had been injured by a 7th heaven immortal king. This was an unprecedented miracle. This was a feat that no one had dared to imagine. Ling Han was the person who had created this miracle, and He Yufeng was destined to become an eternal annotation. He would accompany him for the rest of his life. In the future, whoever talked about Ling Han's feat today would bring He Yufeng into the picture, using his shame to set off Ling Han's monstrous talent. This was Ling Han's ordinary anger. Awesome. His anger could cause a quasi-heavenly venerable to bleed. Could there be a second 7th heaven immortal who could do this? He was not born with it. At most he could protect himself. Du Shi, Amu waning moon. Perhaps if they used their ultimate move now, they could exchange it for a drop of blood from a quasi-heavenly venerable. However, when they were still 7th heaven, this would only be a dream. Ling Han smiled faintly. The flesh and blood on his body were currently regenerating at an astonishing speed. The reason why he was in such a miserable state was actually more, because the two heavenly venerable tier treasured techniques in his body were clashing with each other. This was considered a self-inflicted wound, and he would recover very quickly. Now that the indestructible heaven scroll was circulating, and Ling Han had the foundation of Suzy energy, his recovery speed was naturally very fast. Lord He, thank you for your guidance. He clasped his fists. Although Ling Han's words were very polite, He Yufeng felt a burning sensation on her face. He knew that he would become an eternal laughingstock to set off Ling Han's monstrous talent. His eyes burned with anger, killing intent boiling. He wanted to kill Ling Han, and definitely wouldn't allow him to leave alive. At that time, when others saw Ling Han, they would talk about today's feat, and then viciously step on him a few times. Absolutely not. He was someone destined to become a celestial venerable. So how could he carry such shame? Die. He roared angrily. his hands bursting with blue light that pressed towards Ling Han. Although Ling Han was monstrous, not only exchanging 10 moves with a quasi-heavenly venerable, but even wounding one, after 10 moves, he was also an arrow at the end of its flight. How could he block the hateful counterattack of a quasi-heavenly venerable? But Ling Han was not the slightest bit flustered, and only looked at the other indifferently. He Yufeng, you've gone too far. Lin Piaoshui moved. Her jade arms were light, and her 10 fingers were like plucking flowers, seemingly without a trace of anger, but with great power. Pung, she easily shook He Yufeng back. Although the two were both half-step celestial venerable, He Yufeng had just crossed into this tier, and Lin Piaoshui was probably about to do so. The difference in strength was huge. He Yufeng retreated over 100 steps before regaining his footing. His face was red, first from being shaken by Lin Piaoshui's attack, and second from anger. Was it so difficult for a quasi-heavenly venerable to kill a mere 7th heaven? Are you really going to offend my He clan for this brat? He Yufeng said darkly. Hearing this, Du Shi and the others shook their heads. He Yufeng saying this was using his old man, He Rong, to pressure people. They were all top geniuses, and their own strength was the foundation, the pride and the confidence. But He Yufeng used his old man, which was actually admitting defeat. This naturally made them angry, and in an instant, He Yufeng was pushed down from the level that could be on par with them. Lin Piaoshui's pretty face was calm, and her skin was whiter than snow, as if there was no anger at all. She looked at He Yufeng with a strange expression, as if full of pity. If you don't want to provoke my He clan, leave immediately, He Yufeng said, pointing at the door. Ai, what a silly brat, a voice said leisurely. Big brother. The big black dog immediately jumped up. It was the black donkey. The black donkey sauntered in slowly. It looked like a human, and it placed its front paws behind its back. It stuck out its round belly, and its wretched appearance wasn't inferior to that of the large black dog. Greetings, Lord Divine Donkey. Everyone hurriedly saluted, and even He Yufeng was no exception. Chapter 2685. It's still too early for you to go to the extraterritorial battlefield. Lin Piaoshui said seriously. The cruelty of the extraterrestrial battlefield is far beyond your imagination. You must be more prepared. Ling Han nodded, and stopped talking about the extraterritorial battlefield. The carriage moved extremely quickly, with an immortal gold creature acting as the leg force. The speed was naturally astonishing, making their way through space one after another. Roughly 10 or so days later, they arrived at a mountain range. After entering a certain gate, the mountain range that was originally endless became even more vast, as if they entered a different world. They all got off the carriage, and the golden bull was lying lazily, looking very relaxed. The 5 of them slowly walked forward. There were buildings on every mountain peak, and from time to time, they could see children giggling as they walked past. They were not afraid of strangers at all, and instead kept on laughing at Ling Han and the others. Meanwhile, the large black dog had become the focus of attention. After all, it was extremely rare to see a dog that was wearing iron underwear and looked so wretched. Aunt Shui, who are they? Aunt Shui, you're back. Auntie Shui, did you bring anything delicious? The children gathered around and started talking at the same time. Lin Piaoshui was as gentle as water. She took out some things to distribute to the children and introduced them to Ling Han and the others. She asked them who this was and who that was. This was where the Lin family was, but not only the Lin family, but also the relatives of the Lin family. For example, Lin Piaoshui's mother's family all lived here. There were hundreds of thousands of people in the Lin family. There were countless celestial kings in the Lin clan, but there were only about 10 who had reached the level of celestial venerable, which was pitifully few. Even with the guidance of a 7th-step Empyrean, the number of Empyreans was still so small. It was clear how difficult it was to become an Empyrean. Led by Lin Piaoshui, Ling Han met Lin Xiaoyang. This was Lin Luo's eldest son, who was also the current head of the Lin family. Lin Luo had been overseeing the battlefield outside the battlefield. The 7th-step celestial venerables were the main forces fighting against frenzy, so how could they find the time to come back? Lin Xiaoyang looked to be in his 20s. He was young, handsome, and had a slender figure. There was not a trace of pressure coming from him, and he was as ordinary as an ordinary person. This was a true return to the natural state. Greetings, Senior. Ling Han bowed respectfully. The Rain Emperor, bewitching Maiden Row, and the large black dog also bowed. Even the Empress suppressed her pride and bowed slightly. Lin Xiaoyang's temperament was very similar to his daughter's. They were both calm and collected, as if they would never get angry. He waved his hand and said, "I've heard a lot about you. You're not bad. Me and junior brother Zhou have high hopes for you." A sixth-step heavenly venerate had actually uttered such words of praise. If news of this got out, Ling Han would definitely become famous. "I'm not the kind of person who likes to listen to pleasantries. If you want to repay me, then hurry up and increase your cultivation base," Lin Xiaoyang said. "I have already opened the 9-death pool for you. Drifting snow will bring you there and explain how to use it." A sixth-step Empyrean was naturally very busy. Ling Han and the others nodded. It was already very good that Lin Xiaoyang had taken the time to meet them. Lin Piaoxue brought everyone away, and soon arrived at the top of a mountain. There was a pond at the top of the mountain, green mist rising from it. It was filled with the essence of plants. "This is the 9-death pool," Lin Piaoxue said. Ling Han and the others were all surprised. This pool was filled with the aura of life, and should be called the pool of life. How could there be 9 deaths? Lin Piaoxue shook her head. The creation of heaven and earth is full of wonders. Life is born from extreme death, and there is also great danger hidden in extreme life. She paused. There is a divine tree at the bottom of this pool. In the past, it was the power of wood that attained Tao, and soared to the height of the 9 heavens. Unfortunately, it incurred the jealousy of heaven and earth, and died when it was trying to break through to the heavenly venerate tier. The essence of the divine tree is abundant, and it is a supreme great medicine. However, when the divine tree died, it was struck by the lightning of heaven and earth, and contains endless danger. Later, this pool was refined for my ancestor, and many great medicines were added. With the means of a 7th-step heavenly venerate, the essence of plants within became more and more astonishing. But at the same time, the danger within also became more and more violent. Entering it, there is a slim chance of survival, Lin Piaoxue said seriously. Lin Piaoxue said solemnly, "However, if you can withstand the killing calamity and the medicinal effect, then the benefits are endless." Ling Han looked at the Empress, bewitching Maiden Row, and the Rain Emperor, and the 3 of them nodded at him. "Why not Grandpa Dog?" The large black dog howled. "Do you guys think Grandpa Dog is afraid of death? We will remember this kindness," Ling Han and the others said to Lin Piaoxue, completely ignoring the large black dog. Lin Piaoxue nodded. "It's all for the greater good of the world." With the strength of the Lin family, they actually didn't need the gratitude of Ling Han and the others. Their goal was very simple, and that was to resist the madness. "You guys enter the pool to cultivate. I will stand guard for you," she continued. Ling Han and the others didn't stand on ceremony anymore, and entered the pool one after another. Instantly, an extremely abundant life force surged into their bodies, pushing their cultivation level to rise rapidly. Pooh, the large black dog, jumped in as well. "Damn dog, you're already at the peak of the 9 heavens, why did you come down? There's no harm in absorbing more nutrients," the large black dog said shamelessly. Everyone was already used to the large black dog's shamelessness. They didn't speak anymore, and focused on absorbing the energy in the pool. But soon their expressions changed. This energy was too violent. At first, they could still endure it, but soon it turned into a destructive torrent, surging in their bodies as if it was going to break them. This wasn't a feeling. They soon discovered that there were bloodstains on their bodies. That was because the blood vessels in their bodies had burst. "You must stay in the pool for a full day. Otherwise, not only will it be useless, but it will also be harmful," Lin Piaoxue said from the side. "Fuck, Grandpa Dog has been tricked. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come in," the large black dog wailed. He was already at the peak of the 9 heavens, and it was impossible for him to improve any further. It was just that he was too greedy, and couldn't bear to see others benefit, so he could only stay at the side. Thus he jumped down shamelessly, and the result was that he suffered. Ling Han and the others all gritted their teeth and endured, constantly absorbing the medicinal power and transforming it into their own cultivation. After a day, the 4 people and 1 dog hurriedly jumped out. All of them were panting nonstop, especially the large black dog, who even had tears flowing out. "Come attack me," Lin Piaoxue said. "You need to move your muscles and bones, and fully activate the medicinal power. Otherwise, such violent medicinal power will accumulate in your bodies, and it will affect you greatly." The 4 people and 1 dog looked at each other, and they all moved, attacking Lin Piaoxue. She didn't have any temper, but she was a dignified quasi-celestial venerable. If she really fought, she could destroy them in a few moves. Now, in order to let Ling Han and the others move their muscles and bones, Lin Piaoxue naturally wouldn't go all out. Instead, she used herself as a target. No matter how the 5 powerful cultivators attacked her together, she only resolved the attacks and didn't counterattack. They fought like this for a full 10 days, and then she called for a stop. Ling Han and the others secretly checked their bodies and found that their cultivation had actually improved by a small step. It was really a very small step, a little insignificant, but to have such an improvement in 10 days, it was extremely shocking. Chapter 2686. The medicinal effects had already been refined, and they could enter the 9 death pool to absorb them next. However, the expressions of the 4 people and the dog were all very unsightly. Although it was very satisfying to increase their cultivation level, this was too painful. Their whole bodies were almost breaking apart, and no one wanted to go through it a second time. Furthermore, the 9 death pool was not just for show. If they were really unlucky, they could die. Ling Han jumped in first. Not to mention anything else, just thinking about He Yufeng's domineering attitude, and how she used her strength to suppress others gave rise to endless motivation in Ling Han, and he wanted to trample this bastard to the ground. This required strength, and the 9 death pool could give him strength. What was pain? After Ling Han, the Rain Emperor also entered the pool without hesitation, followed by the Empress. She was extremely proud, but her heart that pursued strength was also extremely tough. Bewitching Maiden Ro was hesitant. She indeed desired strength, but when she thought of the pain she had endured previously, she wanted to retreat. There was no hurry to increase cultivation level. After all, there was Ling Han. Meanwhile, the large black dog was determined not to enter the pool. He had already been tricked previously, and he did not want to do it again. Lin Piaoxue, however, said, "Though you are at the peak stage of the 9th heaven, this 9 death pool is still very helpful to you. It can polish your battle prowess and make it more refined." The large black dog wore a bitter expression, and after thinking for a long time, he still entered the pool. "Grandpa Dog is dying of pain. What sin has Grandpa Dog committed?" he wailed loudly. Lin Piaoxue was speechless. How could there be such a shameless guy? You could choose not to enter if you couldn't bear it, but after entering the pool, you still kept on wailing like a ghost. It really made people speechless. They all absorbed the medicinal effects for a day, and then fought for 10 days to refine the medicinal effects, and their cultivation level would soar. Half a year, 10 years passed quickly. After 30 years, Lin Piaoxue no longer stood guard, because she discovered that the 3 people and 1 dog not only had great willpower, but also had top-notch strength and talent, and could completely withstand the cleansing of the medicinal effects. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the others could also battle and refine the medicinal effects, and did not need her to watch over them at all times. A quasi-Empyrean being able to guard them for over 30 years was already more than enough. Ling Han and the other 3 continued to cultivate, tempering their fleshly bodies and advancing with great difficulty in the face of death. During this period, the 4 of them had experienced several dangerous situations and almost died. Fortunately, their willpower was incomparably strong, and they had survived. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. In the blink of an eye, 700,000 years had passed. Ling Han had reached the peak of the 7th celestial layer, and had the qualifications to attack the 8th celestial layer. There was no need to polish their foundations, because they were experiencing life and death situations every day, so their foundations were naturally very solid. There was also no need for an opportunity to break through, because they were fighting almost every day. In addition, their evolution index was either 11 or 12, so breaking through was naturally a matter of course. Ling Han left first. He was going to transcend the tribulation. His 8th heavenly tribulation already had the power of the peak of the 9th heavenly tribulation. But this was basically the limit. When Ling Han broke through to the 9th heavenly tribulation in the future, his tribulation might also be the same. Even if the power was stronger, it wouldn't be much stronger. Clang the heaven and earth unleashed their might, wanting to stop Ling Han from advancing any further. However, now Ling Han had already cultivated the indestructible celestial king physique to the great accomplishment level, and his physique was only slightly inferior to divine metal. The heavenly tribulation could blast him until he was drenched in blood, but that was all. It was impossible for him to advance any further. One day later, the heavenly tribulation dissipated, yet Ling Han didn't look smug at all. Even the 8th celestial layer couldn't possibly contend with the quasi-empyrean in terms of strength. He still needed to continue advancing. Returning to the 9-death pool, Ling Han immersed himself in cultivation. Another few 100,000 years later, the Empress and the Rain Emperor broke through one after another. Time flew, and 7 million years later, Ling Han's cultivation level had already advanced to the peak of the 8th celestial layer. But he had encountered a bottleneck, and was unable to push open the door to the 9th celestial layer. On the other hand, the Empress and the Rain Emperor were advancing triumphantly, and were about to catch up to his cultivation level. Little Han, the 9th celestial layer is the limit of regulations, and this barrier is not so easy to break through, the large black dog said. You need to temper yourself in the mortal world, and comprehend regulations, before you can take this final step. Ling Han nodded. With the Emperor's star, he could advance into the 9th celestial layer without any difficulty. But this didn't mean that his cultivation level would skyrocket just by sitting still. The path that should be walked still had to be walked, and the necessary process was indispensable. However, even if some people walked this kind of path, it was possible that they would never reach the end. And not only could Ling Han walk it steadily, he could also reach the end very quickly. Grandpa Dog has also polished himself enough here. So it's time for us brothers to go out. When you, brat, advance into the 9th celestial layer, I'm afraid that you will be able to put up a fight even against a quasi-empyrean, the large black dog howled. Defeating that little bastard He Yufeng. Isn't it just advancing into the quasi-empyrean tier a few days earlier? What's so great about that? Ling Han nodded, and decided to leave first with the large black dog. As for the Empress, Bewitching Maiden Ro, and the Rain Emperor, they would continue to cultivate here. Bewitching Maiden Ro would occasionally enter into the 9-death pool to cultivate, but in the time it took for her to enter once, the others could enter over a dozen times, and the improvement of their cultivation level was far from comparable to that of Ling Han and the others. The Empress and the others all agreed, and Ling Han and the large black dog left first, returning to the Martial Arts Academy. After over a dozen days on the road, they returned to the Martial Arts Academy. In the blink of an eye, over 7 million years had passed, and the great commotion that Ling Han had caused at the time had naturally died down long ago. Only the occasional mention of Zhang San Li's name on the immemorial stone would make people sigh. An extremely awesome character had appeared in the Martial Arts Academy, and with a cultivation level of the 7th heaven, he had wounded a quasi-empyrean tier. Of course, if it weren't for those who had been present at the time, the majority of people would still have their doubts about this. How could this 7th heaven celestial king possibly wound a quasi-empyrean tier? Ling Han and the large black dog kept a very low profile, and silently entered the Martial Arts Academy, not attracting anyone's attention. However, the Martial Arts Academy was only so big, and no matter how low profile the man and dog kept, they would still be noticed. Very soon, a wave was set off in the Martial Arts Academy. However, the grand occasion of Ling Han battling He Yufeng again, that everyone anticipated did not happen. because He Yufeng had already left the martial arts academy several million years ago, and it was said that she had gone to the outer realm battlefield. He was naturally stimulated, but it was definitely not because of Ling Han. No matter how freakish a seventh heaven celestial king was, it was impossible for him to feel a sense of urgency. Rather, it was because of Lin Piaoxue, who was also a quasi-Empyrean. In front of Lin Piaoxue, he felt incredibly small and insignificant, which prompted him to make up his mind to go to the outer realm battlefield and increase his battle prowess in the bloody battles. After the large black dog breathed a sigh of relief, he immediately called out, "That guy is lucky. Otherwise, Grandpa Dog would definitely beat him to death." However, Ling Han shook his head and said, "Although our strength has improved by leaps and bounds, it is still impossible for us to cross the threshold of the quasi-Empyrean tier. We are definitely not He Yufeng's match." Previously, he had created his own Heavenly Venerate technique and simultaneously activated 2 Heavenly Venerate techniques, but it had only caused He Yufeng to suffer some minor injuries and bleed a little. Now that his cultivation had increased by 1 heaven, it would at most cause He Yufeng to suffer slightly more serious injuries. Moreover, back then, He Yufeng had only forcefully received this attack because of his pride. In reality, he could have completely dodged it. If he fought He Yufeng again, would he still be limited to some agreement of 10 moves? However, as long as I can reach the 9th heaven, a cold glint flashed in Ling Han's eyes. At that time, he would not have to fear even a quasi-Empyrean. Chapter 2687. Ling Han believed that when he advanced into the 9th heaven, he would have the strength to fight a pseudo-celestial venerable. This was because he had always been tempered by Su Zi's energy, and in reality, he was already a pseudo-celestial venerable. However, his strength as a pseudo-celestial venerable was far inferior to a true pseudo-celestial venerable. However, once he advanced into the 9th heaven, he didn't need to reach the peak to truly stand on the same level as a pseudo-celestial venerable. And if he reached the peak of the 9th heaven, then he would be a true pseudo-celestial venerable, and he would definitely be able to crush other pseudo-celestial venerables. Why? Because other pseudo-celestial venerables only used the unique power of heaven and earth to temper themselves. But Ling Han used Su Zi's energy. Su Zi's energy was one of the 6 essential powers of the origin world, so it was naturally more powerful than the unique power. This was a qualitative suppression. The problem now was that he had to break through to the 9th heaven. Soon, someone from the Wang clan came again. It was Wang Yangming again. He represented the Wang clan to continue cooperating with Ling Han, and after a few million years, the Wang clan had also collected enough divine metal. You actually broke through to the 8th heaven." Wang Yangming was stunned. He knew that Ling Han was freakish, and his strength was so strong that he could even injure pseudo-celestial venerables. But in less than 10 million years, this guy advanced from the 7th heaven to the 8th heaven. This speed was too fast. Ling Han nodded, but didn't say that he had actually already reached the peak of the 8th heaven, and was only a step away from breaking through to the 9th heaven. What he lacked now was only an opportunity. The two chatted for a while, and Ling Han once again expressed his gratitude to the Wang clan, while Wang Yangming also expressed his hope to have deeper cooperation with Ling Han and forge a deeper relationship, such as marrying one of their little princesses, causing Ling Han's face to involuntarily darken. Fuck, so much time had passed, and the Wang clan still hadn't forgotten. After Wang Yangming left, Ling Han began to upgrade the Divine Demon Sword. This time, the Wang clan sent over a dozen pieces of divine metal in one go, which should be enough to upgrade the Divine Demon Sword. After knowing the news, the large black dog was also very excited and ran over to watch. Ling Han drew out the Divine Demon Sword. The devouring metal instinctively activated, and immediately began to devour the divine metal. Against the devouring metal, even something as powerful as immortal metal could only be easily devoured. Its essence sucked dry, turning into dust. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. As the Divine Demon Sword swallowed more and more divine metal, this celestial tool was also exuding a blazing light. Ancient characters appeared on it, yet they could not be recognized. "Little Han, You mustn't miss a single word, the large black dog said as he widened his eyes. This is the Heavenly Venerable Seal, a language that only Heavenly Venerables can understand. It can communicate with the essential power of the origin world. However, although an Empyrean can understand it, they can't make it manifest. Only when the devouring gold metal rises to the Empyrean level will it stir the world and manifest this supreme symbol. Ling Han hurriedly widened his eyes as well. Looking closely, he soon discovered that the indestructible heaven scroll that he had read in the Black Tower was somewhat similar to these characters, but it was far less complex and profound than these characters. Heavenly Venerables naturally had the ability to pry into the origin world, and the wondrous techniques they created had similar effects. However, the Heavenly Venerable Fate-born had only taken one step, after all. At most, he had seen through some kind of essential power of the celestial realm, so the techniques he created were not as profound as these. But it was also because of this that the Heavenly Venerable Fate-born was able to pass down the indestructible heaven's scroll. Otherwise, a Heavenly Venerable wouldn't be able to write it. Ling Han did not understand at all, yet he felt a deep sense of comprehension. That was because whenever these characters appeared in his mind, he discovered that the efficiency of the energy of his void sun would increase by many times. Originally, it would take 1,000 years to sense and draw out a void sun, but now it would only take 10 years. It had increased by a whole 100 times. This was too astonishing. Ling Han was overjoyed. Even if these Heavenly Venerable characters had no other use, merely increasing his ability to sense void suns was enough. Boom! The divine demon sword suddenly released a boundless celestial light, tearing the sky apart. Thunderclouds surged, and the heavenly tribulation quickly took shape. Little Han, run! A Heavenly Venerable tool is undergoing heavenly tribulation, and with our strength, staying nearby is equivalent to seeking death. The large black dog hurriedly grabbed Ling Han and ran, his face pale with fright. Ling Han did not dare to hesitate, and also began to run. Xiao! The divine demon sword shot into the sky, meeting the heavenly tribulation. Flashes of lightning struck down on the divine demon sword, one after another, densely packed and terrifying. After countless tempering, it has surpassed the level of divine metal. The large black dog sighed. In the past, Grandpa Dog had seen the Heavenly Venerable Fate-born forge the Tower of Three Realms, but at that time, you had already become a Heavenly Venerable, so you could help the Tower of Three Realms resist the heavenly tribulation. But now, only the divine demon sword itself is left. If it survives, it can truly transcend. If it fails, it will mourn with the mortal world. Ling Han did not speak. He only raised his head, his eyes filled with determination. He believed that the divine demon sword would definitely survive, because this was a treasure tool that he had forged, and it had followed him for so many years. His personality had also completely assimilated into it, and the more setbacks it encountered, the stronger it would become. The commotion caused by a Heavenly Venerable tool undergoing heavenly tribulation was really too great, and the entire academy was alarmed. Even the two Heavenly Venerables in charge opened their eyes and looked toward the sky. The layers of bricks and tiles could not block their eyes. Another new Heavenly Venerable tool is about to appear. Strange, there is no third Heavenly Venerable here. Could it be that this Heavenly Venerable tool is only forged by a celestial king? How daring! Isn't he afraid that the heavenly tribulation will be merciless and blast the embryonic treasure tool, leaving him with nothing? The two Heavenly Venerables sighed, and then withdrew their gazes. They were both veteran Heavenly Venerables, and naturally had already forged Heavenly Venerable tools in their own planes, so it was impossible for them to have any designs on the divine demon sword. Of course, if it was not because of the resistance against the madness that caused all the Heavenly Venerables to put aside their prejudices and come together, they would definitely make a move to snatch it. Who would complain about having too many Heavenly Venerable tools? A day later, the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Pa! The divine demon sword fell from the sky. Only 1/3 of the sword's blade remained, and it was completely dim. As expected, without Master's protection, it could not pass through. The two great heavenly venerables opened their eyes again and shook their heads. The others in the academy had also arrived. Even if not all of them could recognize that this was a heavenly venerable tool undergoing heavenly tribulation, they all thought that the divine demon sword had failed in its advancement, and naturally did not pay it any attention. This was how this world was. Only those who succeeded would have their names resound through the ages, and those who failed would only be immediately swept into the dust of history. The divine demon sword fell and landed at Ling Han's feet. Its whole body was dim, and it had lost all its spirituality. It actually failed. The large black dog's expression was filled with disappointment. He had hoped that the divine demon sword would advance, and in the future, he would suppress his innate nature and release the divine sense of the heavenly venerable born origin. This had already become his obsession, but now that the divine demon sword had failed in its advancement, it was naturally incredibly disappointed. Ling Han bent down and picked up the divine demon sword. He shook his head and said, "I don't believe that it would fail." He had this kind of confidence. Firstly, because the heavenly tribulation had lasted for a whole day, and the divine demon sword had indeed passed through the heavenly tribulation. Secondly, it had fused with his martial art intent, and possessed his tenacious and indomitable conviction. How could it possibly fail? Chapter 2689. After a while, Ling Han came out to open the door. "Ling Han, I am Yun." Bam! Poor Yun Aokong. He had only said a few words before he was knocked unconscious again. 3 days later, he woke up for the third time. His first reaction was to kill Ling Han and swallow him alive. However, when he recalled that he had been knocked unconscious 3 times in a row, he finally came to a realization. Ling Han was a freak who dared to oppose even a pseudo-heavenly venerable. Actually, he did not believe this rumor. Wasn't it a huge joke that a level 7 celestial king could injure a quasi-celestial venerable? But now he believed it a little. At least this guy was shockingly daring. With this thought, he finally learned his lesson and carefully knocked on the door. The door opened and Ling Han appeared. "I am Yun Aokong. Greetings, senior brother Ling." Yun Aokong straightened his attitude and cupped his fists at Ling Han. His heart was perturbed. He wouldn't be slapped unconscious again, right? He already had a psychological shadow. In the end, Ling Han did not attack again. After so many times, this young man finally knew what it meant to respect others and follow the rules. He said, "What is it?" The corner of Yun Aokong's mouth twitched. After being knocked unconscious 3 times, he finally had a chance to talk business. It was not easy. Thinking of business, he became arrogant again. "I am here on behalf of the Yun family. I would like to ask senior brother Ling to refine pills for us for 100 million years for free." Pa! As soon as he finished speaking, he was knocked unconscious by Ling Han. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Even if he had a natural treasure in front of him, whether he wanted to refine pills or not depended on his mood. Was everyone in the Yin family kicked in the head by a donkey? They actually said they wanted him to refine pills for 100 million years for free. Fuck idiots. Now he no longer needed immortal metal. What he needed were materials that could allow his physique to advance to the indestructible immortal metal body. These were not necessarily more precious than immortal metal, but they were rare and strange. They were hundreds of times more difficult to obtain than immortal metal. He had asked the Wang family to search for them, but they might not be able to find all of them even after hundreds of millions of years. Thus, even if the Yin family brought immortal metal, he would not agree, let alone for free. Do you think he's stupid? This time, Ling Han used a lot more force. Yun Aokong only woke up after 7 days. He shook his head and touched it. His face had turned green. His head is now swollen like a pumpkin. Ling Han. He gritted his teeth, but he hadn't finished speaking yet. He couldn't possibly leave just like that, so he could only knock on the door again. The door opened, revealing Ling Han. "Don't attack. Let me finish," Yun Aokong said hurriedly. He even covered his head with his hands. He had really been traumatized by the beating. When he saw that Ling Han did not attack, he said hurriedly, "Don't think that the Yin family has gone overboard. Our patriarch said that you shouldn't forget that the cemetery of the immortal king was destroyed because of you. Ling Han was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood. After he reported Huang Yu's plot, he provoked Zhou Heng to attack and forcefully destroyed the cemetery of the immortal king. Only a few people left alive, because the majority had already been affected by the black qi, which was the frenzied will, and could only be killed. In fact, he had done a great service. Otherwise, who knew how terrifying the destruction would have been if tens of thousands of pseudo-celestial venerables had appeared? However, to some major forces, they thought that it was Ling Han who had cut off their source of wealth. Rising dragon pills. In the outside world, no one publicly sold rising dragon pills, because the origins of these things were too dirty. They were formed by watering the flesh and blood of celestial kings. But these major forces could use them to increase the strength of their clan members. The stronger they were as a whole, the more power they had, and the more profits they could earn. For this, they even sent members of their own clans, such as Green Ghost Celestial King. But with Ling Han's disturbance, the cemetery of the immortal king was completely gone, and the supply of rising dragon pills was naturally cut off as well. This definitely angered many forces. The Yun family was the first to come looking for him. It was not good for them to directly ask Ling Han to compensate them. After all, the matter of the cemetery of the immortal king could not be brought up in public. Fortunately, Ling Han was a pill grandmaster, so they thought of asking him to refine pills for free for 100 million years. What wishful thinking! Pow! Ling Han slapped Yun Aokong again and knocked him out. 9 days later, Yun Aokong woke up again. This time, he did not knock on the door again, and instead turned around and left. He had finally said what he wanted to say. Since Ling Han was stubborn, then he could only wait to receive the Yin family's rage. However, for the sake of saying a few simple words, he had actually been knocked out 5 times. Just thinking about it made him depressed, and he even cursed Ling Han half to death in his heart. After Yun Aokong left, a few more people came to find Ling Han. They were either polite or filled with threats, but what they said was almost the same. They all wanted him to compensate for the losses in the Celestial King's cemetery, and they wanted him to refine alchemical pills for free as compensation. Ling Han naturally ignored them. Those who should be beaten were beaten, and those who should be expelled were expelled. If it was not for the fact that it was not convenient to kill people in the martial arts academy, he really wanted to be ruthless and get some peace and quiet. After Yun Aokong and the others went back and repeated Ling Han's attitude, it naturally caused strong dissatisfaction among the major forces. Before they came, Ling Han had destroyed the cemetery of the immortal king, but he actually patted his butt and acted as if nothing had happened. How could it be so cheap? Not long after, many Ninth Heaven immortal kings entered the martial arts academy to target Ling Han. Heavenly Venerables. All the Heavenly Venerables had gone to the extraterritorial battlefield, according to the agreement. They would have to fight for countless years before returning to recuperate for a period of time. Therefore, it did not matter if one was a 3rd step, 4th step, or 5th step Heavenly Venerable force. They could not invite a Heavenly Venerable out. Moreover, this was just a small matter. Did they want a 3rd step or 4th step Heavenly Venerable to deal with the 7th Heaven Immortal King? Of course, they did not know that Ling Han had already advanced to 8th Heaven. If 9th Heaven Immortal Kings attacked, as long as there were enough of them, even pseudo-Heavenly Venerables could resist them. Suppressing a mere 7th Heaven Immortal King was naturally not a problem. Inside the cave abode, Ling Han let out a long sigh of relief. He opened his hand and saw that there was a small sword in his palm. It was really small, not even half an inch. But even though it was small, it exuded a frightening aura that even Heavenly Venerables would be moved. Heavenly Venerable treasure tool. Under his nourishment, the divine demon sword had already recovered from a dot to its current size, like a child growing. Pung pung pung. At this moment, there was another knock on the door. Ling Han sighed. Was he too easy to talk to? That was why there were always people coming to make trouble for him. He stood up, and the divine demon sword was immediately covered in iron embroidery. Its size rapidly increased. These iron shavings were shed from the divine demon sword, and they also had a certain nourishing effect. He went out to open the door. Holy shit! There were actually over 39th heaven immortal kings standing at the door, all of them showing off their auras without any fear. Apart from them, there were also young people like Yun Aokong. They stood far away, all of them crossing their arms and looking at Ling Han coldly. They could not wait for Ling Han to be trampled on. This was because they were all victims, and they had suffered at the hands of Ling Han previously. Ling Han, you are really audacious. You have caused such a great disaster. Yet you still refuse to admit your guilt. A ninth heaven immortal king reprimanded, directly defining Ling Han as a criminal. Ling Han smiled faintly. It's better not to expose the matter in the cemetery of the celestial kings. If you all scram now, I can't be bothered to lower myself to your level. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 2690. The Ninth Firmament Immortal Kings naturally didn't take such a threat to heart, ignoring the fact that Ling Han was only at the seventh firmament. So what if he was a quasi-heavenly venerate? About 10 people working together would be enough to fend him off. With over 30 peak Ninth Firmament Immortal Kings attacking together, even a quasi-heavenly venerate would tremble. This brat is rude and unreasonable. We can only take him down. That's right, take him down. If we don't educate such a person properly, it will damage the prestige of the Martial Institute. We can't let this rat shit ruin the Martial Institute's image. These immortal kings all had malevolent looks on their faces. Their laws were circulating, they were about to act. So arrogant. Openly making a move in the martial arts academy, they weren't afraid, because they had the backing of a celestial venerable. Moreover, they had already informed the 2 celestial venerables, who were in charge of the martial courtyard. So long as Ling Han returned to the martial courtyard unscathed, everything would be fine. Of course, this was also their bottom line. If they let the students get injured while they were in charge, it would be really inexcusable. It wasn't like they were attacking in a frenzy. Ling Han swept his gaze over and said, "Except for those little fellows at the back, none of you are from the martial institution, right? So what?" The Ninth Firmament Immortal King said disdainfully. Ling Han revealed a murderous smile. "In that case, it'll be fine even if I kill all of you." Insolence. The Ninth Firmament Immortal Kings rebuked coldly. A Seventh Firmament Immortal King actually dared to say that he wanted to kill them. They really did not know where he got his courage from. "Ling Han, do you need help?" Du Shi's voice rang out. He stood proudly in the sky, not hiding his aura at the peak of the 9th layer of the heavens. It was unknown how much stronger he was compared to the other 9th layer of the heavens. It was very likely that his evolution index had already reached 12. "Haha, if there is a need, I don't mind helping." Elder Waning Moon also appeared. He crossed his arms and his eyes were red, as if he was filled with killing intent. "Me too." Amu appeared on the other side. The 3 powerhouses appeared at the same time, their faces full of indifference. They did not think much of these 9th Firmament Immortal Kings. Ling Han laughed and said, "Thank you, but it's just some trash. I'm afraid it won't be enough for me to kill." Damn it! The 9th Firmament Immortal Kings were seething with anger. It was one thing for Amu, and the other 2 to be so domineering. After all, they were famous monstrous geniuses. It was publicly acknowledged that they could become heavenly venerables. It was just a matter of time. However, who was Ling Han? He was only a 7th Firmament Immortal King. Did he really think he was a quasi-celestial venerable, just because he could make He Yufeng bleed? Are you kidding? "Kid, let me teach you how to behave." A 9th Firmament Immortal King leaped forward and reached out to grab Ling Han. This move was very direct. It was to use the realm of the 9th heaven to suppress people. There were 9 tiers to the Celestial King realm. Every step was like ascending to the heavens. The Celestial King realm was the greatest advantage, because the regulations that they drew were completely different. Ling Han stood motionless. He only punched out when the 9th Firmament Immortal King's attack arrived. However, this punch was as fast as light. Bam! With a single punch, he broke apart the Immortal King's attack. The power of his fist continued forward, and as the expression of that Immortal King changed drastically, the power of his fist had already slammed into his body. The immense force of the punch caused him to be flung through the air. The immortal king fell to the ground on his buttocks and vomited blood. Immediately the surroundings fell silent. Not a single sound could be heard. What was going on? A seventh firmament immortal king made a ninth firmament immortal king vomit blood with a single punch? Eighth firmament Ling Han's attack immediately caused 8 beams of light to appear on his body. In less than 10 million years, he advanced from the seventh firmament to the eighth firmament. What a monstrous genius! But even if he's at the eighth firmament, it's still unbelievable for him to defeat a ninth firmament immortal king with a single punch. The expressions of the ninth firmament immortal kings changed drastically. They never expected Ling Han to be so ferocious. A ninth firmament immortal king. The ninth firmament was extremely difficult to break through. Even a monstrous genius like Ling Han would be stuck at the ninth firmament for a period of time. Once he broke through, his strength would soar. Therefore, those who could break through to the ninth firmament were definitely not weaklings. They were all experts who had reached a certain standard. Even powerhouses like Amu and Du Shi could only fight 4 to 5 peak ninth firmament immortal kings at the same time. How could Ling Han be so ferocious? Amu and the other powerhouses revealed looks of surprise. Ling Han already had the qualifications to fight them. Once Ling Han made a breakthrough, wouldn't he be able to suppress them? How did this kid cultivate? The reason was simple. Ling Han had tempered his body with hollow energy. He was equivalent to a quasi-heavenly venerate, but his upper limit was the eighth firmament. It was naturally not a problem for him to fight a peak ninth firmament immortal king. For a time, all the ninth firmament immortal kings were shocked. They finally realized that Ling Han dared to boast not because he liked to brag, but because he truly had the strength. Furthermore, he was unimaginably strong. Don't worry, we have more than 30 peak ninth firmament immortal kings here. As long as we work together, taking down this kid will be a piece of cake, said a ninth firmament immortal king from the Yin family. That's right. More immortal kings nodded. An eighth firmament immortal king was just an eighth firmament immortal king. In front of their strength, even quasi-heavenly venerates would have to give way. Ling Han took a deep breath and said indifferently, "Today, I'll use the heads of you ninth firmament immortal kings to forge my name. I want to see if anyone dares to extend their claws at me in the future." Shameless boasting. All the ninth firmament immortal kings were infuriated. Ling Han didn't waste any more words. He attacked. Bam! He exerted strength in his feet and stomped on the ground. His entire body instantly shot into the sky at an incredible speed. Don't run. The ninth firmament immortal kings hurriedly gave chase, afraid that Ling Han would escape. Ling Han was only one person, but there were many ninth firmament immortal kings. It was impossible for all of them to have the same speed. Moreover, in order to prevent Ling Han from escaping, the fast immortal kings would definitely go all out. They didn't dare to hold back. As a result, more than 30 immortal kings immediately formed a long line. Just at this moment, Ling Han suddenly turned around and attacked. He abruptly came to a halt, then charged downwards, his fists swinging furiously. The 9 transformations heaven scripture was already circulating. With the strength of Ling Han's punches, even quasi-heavenly venerates would suffer serious injuries if they took a blow. The immortal king at the very front didn't expect Ling Han to actually dare to turn around and attack him. It was too late for him to dodge, so he hurriedly gathered all his strength into his hands. The great Tao wrapped around his hands as he charged at Ling Han. Bam! They collided. The immortal king's hands instantly exploded at a speed visible to the naked eye, transforming into a rain of blood. His skin rippled like the surface of water. Bam! 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 His arms opened up like umbrellas, leaving only his skeleton. His flesh and blood were all shaken into arcs. Ah! The immortal king let out a miserable cry. This was too painful for him. With this slight delay, the other immortal kings caught up and launched their attacks at Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. After all, he was only an 8th firmament immortal, not a true quasi-heavenly venerate. Even though he had carefully prepared this attack, he was only able to severely injure the immortal king. He couldn't kill him in one fell swoop. Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 2691. However, The people below were completely dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Although Ling Han had forced back a 9th-level immortal king with a single strike before, that immortal king might have been careless and didn't use his full strength. But it was different now. Everyone knew how monstrous Ling Han was. But they were still injured by Ling Han with a single strike. This meant that Ling Han was freakishly strong. However, more than 30 immortal kings had already caught up and surrounded him. It's over. There's no way Ling Han can escape after falling into such a tight encirclement. Unless he's a quasi-heavenly venerable. 10 peak 9th heaven celestial kings could only hold off a quasi-heavenly venerate and barely fight to a draw. However, if they really wanted to bury a quasi-heavenly venerate, it would be impossible without at least 100 peak 9th heaven celestial kings. Therefore, it was naturally easy for a quasi-heavenly venerable to break through such an encirclement. But if it was Ling Han, no matter how they thought about it, it was impossible. Unless the 2 overseers of the Martial Academy intervene. Impossible. These 9th-level immortal kings dared to attack so openly. Clearly, they've already notified them. It's fine as long as they don't seriously injure Ling Han. Below, Yin Aokong and the other young people were sneering. They were finally going to make the Demon King, who had tortured them, pay the price. Amu, Du Shi, and Waning Moon frowned slightly. They were thinking about how they would resolve this predicament if they were in Ling Han's shoes. Fighting head-on would definitely not end well. Even if they could kill a few immortal kings, they would still be drowned in the end. What about Ling Han? It was simple. He let out a long roar and attacked without any hesitation. Reckless, too reckless. Wasn't this speeding up his defeat? Boom. All the 9th-level immortal kings attacked in unison. The laws shone, and the great Tao rumbled. Even a quasi-heavenly venerable would frown. Ling Han punched out. But there were just too many attacks. Some were neutralized by him, but others landed on his body. However, a terrifying scene appeared. When these attacks landed on Ling Han's body, they only produced rays of light. They were unable to break through his defense. What? The expressions of all the immortal kings changed. This was simply too shocking. What kind of defense did this brat have? It was simply godly. Immortal king, immortal body with such a physique. Even the combined attacks of 9th firmament immortal kings would not be able to injure him. Only quasi-heavenly venerables could damage him. Therefore, Ling Han had nothing to fear. He rampaged through the group of immortal kings and attacked wantonly. And he didn't have to worry about defending himself at all. Down below, everyone was dumbfounded. To actually have such a freakish physique, it was probably not much different from being born with it. Perhaps Tiansheng's defense was a little stronger. But the problem was, with Tiansheng's current combat strength, could he tear through Ling Han's defense? It was fine as long as it was sufficient. Ling Han let out a long howl as he swung his fists furiously. Not only were these powers ungrateful towards his contributions, they actually placed the blame of the destruction of the immortal king's cemetery on him. And this caused him to be extremely furious. In his opinion, these people should have been thrown into the outer realm battlefield to fend for themselves. Well, now it was up to him to clean up. Ling Han attacked without any scruples. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, more than a dozen immortal kings had been injured by him. However, because Ling Han could not constantly circulate the 9 transformations heaven scripture, or the 5 elemental lightning art, these immortal kings were only slightly injured. He was not very satisfied. He had originally wanted to kill a few of them. However, when such a battle result entered the eyes of the others, they were all dumbfounded. Was this a quasi-heavenly venerate? Not only was he not suppressed by more than 39 firmament immortal kings, but he had also injured more than a dozen immortal kings. There was no one else with such combat strength. Use your ultimate move. The immortal kings flew into a rage out of humiliation. They felt their faces burning. It was embarrassing enough for so many immortal kings to join forces to attack an 8th firmament immortal king. But they were still injured by the other party. How would they be able to raise their heads in the future? More than a dozen immortal kings continued to fight Ling Han, while the other immortal kings began to accumulate their ultimate moves, wanting to defeat Ling Han in one fell swoop. This was very shameless, but it was very effective. More than a dozen immortal kings could even fight a pseudo-heavenly venerable, so it was naturally possible for them to block Ling Han. Therefore, Ling Han could only watch helplessly as the immortal kings began to accumulate their ultimate moves. He could not stop them at all. Suppress. 7 immortal kings were the first to finish accumulating their power, blasting out terrifying attacks. Boom, boom, boom. More and more celestial kings unleashed their most powerful attacks and charged toward Ling Han to suppress him. Endless brilliance flashed brilliantly, as beautiful as fireworks, but all the spectators had the same thought. Such a ferocious attack had better not kill Ling Han. That would be a serious matter, and perhaps even the Lin clan would appear. What kind of existence was the Lin clan? It had a 7th-step heavenly venerable. Even if Lin Luo did not appear, Zhou Heng, Lin Xiaoyang, and Chu Hao could casually walk out and sweep through 99% of the origin world. Who could afford to provoke them? The brilliance of the attack dissipated, and in the center of the battle, there was a golden light that had transformed into a sphere. Ling Han. He activated the indestructible heaven scroll and forcibly blocked the ultimate moves of the great immortal kings. He was practically unscathed. There were wounds on his arm and lower abdomen, but they were only minor wounds. After all, he had been attacked by more than 30 celestial kings at the peak stage of the 9th heaven. Even the indestructible heaven scroll could not possibly leave him unscathed. However, such wounds were naturally trivial and could not affect his battle prowess at all. To hell with it. All the immortal kings felt their scalps go numb. This kind of defense was practically despair-inducing. They were completely unbreakable. Ling Han's killing intent blazed. He finally drew out the divine demon sword. If he wanted to break through the defense of these immortal kings and start a massacre, it was impossible for him to do so with his own strength. Then he would use a paragon treasure tool. Ha ha ha. When Ling Han drew out such a weapon, the 9th heaven celestial kings all laughed loudly. Did you take out such a broken thing to tease us? They did not use celestial tools. Firstly, celestial metal was rare, and they could not allow everyone to have one. Secondly, they wanted to capture Ling Han, so it was naturally not good to use celestial tools. Otherwise, if they were not careful, they would die or be injured. This was not in line with their original intentions. Just now they were still shocked because their ultimate moves had been blocked by Ling Han. But now they were all laughing. Ling Han also laughed. These people could laugh all they wanted now, but he would make them cry later. He took a step forward, and his body technique exploded. His speed was rapid, and he had already arrived in front of one person. He brandished his sword and slashed out. Now these celestial kings all knew that his body technique was astonishing, so they all formed groups of 2. When one was attacked, the other would help to neutralize the attack. Thus, the 2 great celestial kings attacked at the same time and returned the favor to Ling Han. Pooh! Cold light flashed, and the 9th heaven trembled. Although the 2 great celestial kings launched their attacks, the cold light swept out, and they were sliced into 2 without any suspense. They were cut at the waist like grass. What was going on? Even if that broken and tattered sword was a celestial tool, the 9th heaven celestial king also stood at the end of the regulations. Under the entanglement of the great Tao, it was impossible for a celestial tool to cut through it. But with a single slash, 2 great celestial kings were cut in half at the waist. This was too exaggerated, wasn't it? Heavenly venerable treasure tool. After a long time, someone finally said with difficulty. Chapter 2693. The Wang clan had sent over a dozen pieces of immortal metal, but Ling Han did not use them all. To him, immortal metal was no longer of much use, and he could use them to pay off the debt he owed Wall. After paying all the bills, Ling Han and the other 2 set off, following the route he had drawn out, and began to ask for an explanation from each clan. The clan closest to them was the Lu clan, but even with the 3 of them's speed, it still took them about a month to reach their destination. They did not directly fight their way in. The Lu clan had a 3rd-step heavenly venerable, although he had gone to the foreign battlefield a long time ago, and only returned once in a long time. Who knew what kind of tricks a 3rd-step heavenly venerable would set up? Perhaps he could even kill a pseudo-heavenly venerable. It was better to be careful. Wall went first and released a green light to scan the Lu clan's situation. After 100 million years, he had also extracted all of the energy in the dimensional scroll, and the efficiency of his conversion was far above Ling Han's. Ling Han didn't know whether this had increased his battle prowess or not, but his scanning ability had increased by a good few hundred times. With a thought, the green light shot out several hundred meters and became transparent like sunlight. Even a heavenly venerable wouldn't be able to distinguish it. 19 living beings with a vitality index of around 13,000 and 37 living beings with a vitality index of around 12,000, Wall said. He had a clear understanding of the Lu clan's situation. There were only 19 ninth heaven celestial kings, which was not enough. Ling Han sighed ruefully and then laughed. 19 ninth heaven celestial kings could barely stop 2 pseudo-heavenly venerables. In this world where heavenly venerables did not appear, what was there to worry about? Moreover, even pseudo-heavenly venerables would not dare to offend the Lu clan. Were they not afraid that the Lu clan's third step, heavenly venerable, would fly into a rage? Brat, are we really going to do this? The large black dog asked. He was still a little afraid. After all, the fate-born heavenly venerable had only been a first-step heavenly venerable back then, and was far inferior to that person from the Lu clan. Of course. Ling Han nodded. He did not offend anyone, but the 9 great forces all wanted to capture him to refine pills. How could he tolerate this? Is there no heavenly venerable level power? Ling Han asked Wall. Wally shook his head. No. Since Wally said there was none, then there must be none. Thinking about it, was there any need for any other means to deal with the 3-step heavenly venerate and 19 ninth firmament immortal kings? Go. Ling Han took the lead and walked out. The large black dog hesitated for a moment before following suit. Only Vale remained where he was. His body transformed, and he actually turned into a rock. If Ling Han and the large black dog hadn't seen his transformation with their own eyes, they definitely wouldn't have been able to distinguish him from other rocks. I'm not going, Wally said. I'm an analytics-type fighter, not a combat type. Grandpa Dog is still responsible for cleaning up the battlefield, the large black dog said in a cowardly manner. You come with me. Ling Han grabbed the large black dog. It was one thing for Wally, but the large black dog also wanted to reap benefits without sowing. No, no. The large black dog flailed his hind legs, looking as if he was about to be eaten alive. They screamed as they walked, and soon arrived at the gates of the Lu clan. In fact, this was a city, but it completely belonged to the Lu clan. Though there were some people who didn't have the surname Lu in the city, they were all external relatives of the Lu clan. Added with some servants, they formed the huge structure of the Lu clan. Who is it? There were guards at the gates, and when they saw Ling Han dragging a large black dog over, they still dutifully stepped forward to ask. Ling Han stopped and said, Go inform someone who can make decisions. Say that Ling Han has come to demand repayment. To demand repayment from the Lu clan? There were 4 guards at the gates, and they all sneered when they heard this. What kind of place was the Lu clan? A holy land with a heavenly venerable overseeing it. You're here to seek death, right? How dare you? One of the guards immediately jumped out. In a situation where they didn't know the depth of Ling Han's strength, they naturally couldn't inform their superiors. Otherwise, the Lu clan made such a big fuss. But the person who came was only in the mountain river tier. Wouldn't that be a laughingstock to the whole world? And they would be even more severely punished? Seize him. He stretched out a hand, grabbing at Ling Han. Ling Han stamped his foot lightly. Ka! The ground suddenly split open, and a crack extended all the way from his feet to the city walls. It didn't stop when it reached the base of the city walls, but instead continued upwards. Ka ka ka. Immediately, a gigantic crack appeared on the city walls, as if it was grinning. The guard who had made a move staggered, and his figure swayed before he could steady himself. He looked at the crack beside him in shock, and then turned around as the crack extended. When the city walls were broken, he was almost scared out of his wits. This city wall had been refined and strengthened by numerous celestial kings, and was enough to withstand a few attacks from a high-level celestial king. But Ling Han merely stamped his foot, and the city walls were broken. He hadn't received any direct attack at all, which meant how powerful Ling Han was. The 4 guards trembled at the same time. This was too ridiculously powerful. However, they still didn't understand. No matter how strong Ling Han was, there was no way he could be compared to a third-step celestial sovereign. Why did he dare to kill his way into the Lu clan? What's going on? A stern voice rang out. Xiao. A figure flew out from the city, landing at the city gates. He pointed to the crack on the city walls as he questioned the 4 guards. This was a young man. From the perspective of the fire of life, he had at most cultivated for a few 100 million years, but his body was already shrouded by a brilliant light. He was actually a first heavenly layer celestial king, truly extraordinary. The 4 guards were still in a state of numbness. When they heard that, they all pointed to Ling Han. Him. The young man walked towards Ling Han, and his lips involuntarily twitched. What kind of combination was this? Ling Han's appearance was rather normal, but he was dragging a large black dog in his hand. Moreover, this large black dog was far too abnormal. Although its fur was as smooth as satin, it was wearing a pair of black iron underwear that was still reflecting a cold light. No matter how one looked at it, there was an air of wretchedness about it. Who the hell are you? How dare you destroy the city gates of my Lu clan? The young man knew that it was impossible for him to do this. His strength was definitely inferior to Ling Han's, but when he asked this question, his tone was filled with arrogance. He didn't respect Ling Han at all. This was the arrogance of a disciple of a celestial sovereign clan. So what? Just because I have a third-step celestial sovereign ancestor, I can be so overbearing? If you aren't convinced, I'll destroy you. Ling Han sighed. He stretched out his left hand and slapped the young man across the face. What kind of strength did he have now? Since he had made a move, how could a mere first heavenly layer celestial king block it? With a slap, the young man was instantly sent flying. Coincidentally, he just happened to be embedded in the cracked city walls, like a decoration. Young master fuming. Seeing this scene, the 4 guards suddenly reacted. They hurriedly shouted at the top of their lungs. This was a direct descendant of the Lu clan. You've caused a huge disaster. One of the guards pointed at Ling Han. Hurry up and get reinforcements, the second guard shouted anxiously. Ling Han smiled, casually pulled out a chair and sat down. He said with a smile, "There's no need to rush. I'll wait here. Hurry up and get reinforcements." Too arrogant, too arrogant. The 4 guards were unable to restrain their anger. He had barged into the Lu clan and attacked without the slightest scruple, and he was still so nonchalant. Chapter 2694. Little Han, let go of Grandpa Dog, the large black dog shouted. Ling Han released his grip, and the large black dog immediately took to his heels. As he ran, he shouted, "I'll hold the fort for you. If you can't win, Grandpa Dog will come and save you." Xiao, he disappeared without a trace. This damned dog was afraid of death. Ling Han didn't care, and even closed his eyes casually. The 4 guards trembled. Lu Fuming was still embedded in the city wall, his limbs dangling. They didn't even know if he was dead or alive. If the Lu clan came and asked, how would they answer? What he was afraid of had come. After a while, 3 figures flew over. Although the 3 of them arrived at almost the same time, they didn't come together. Instead, they came from 3 different corners of the city. What's going on? Why is Fuming injured? Who is this person? The 3 of them looked around, and anger appeared on their faces. Who was so bold to come to the Lu clan and injure people, and even destroy the Lu clan's city wall? That's him. The 4 guards hurriedly pointed at Ling Han. He's called Ling Han. Ling Han. The 3 people frowned. They didn't seem to have heard of this name. Sounds familiar. One of them racked his brains for a while, and felt that he had heard this name somewhere before. He couldn't help but try to remember. Humph, I don't care who you are. You dare to come to the Lu clan and commit murder? You must be tired of living, a man in green said. He was a 3rd heaven celestial king, and his face was filled with arrogance. Even if you're a 9th heaven, you can only kneel here. This was the arrogance of the Lu clan. No matter who you were, Even if you were a ninth heaven celestial king, you wouldn't be afraid. Ling Han shook his head. You're really used to being arrogant and domineering. You don't even know how to speak properly. He waved his hand and struck at the green-robed man. He was just as nonchalant, and he struck through the air as if he were hitting an ant. Pa! With a slap, the green-clothed man was instantly sent flying. He landed heavily in the crack of the city wall, right next to Lu Fuming. It was as if he was trying to mend the crack. How brazen! You actually dare to attack me, shouted the red-robed man. This person was truly too brazen. He was actually so unbridled. You too. Ling Han waved his palm again. Pa! The red-robed man was also sucked into the fissure. You're Ling Han, that Ling Han. Finally, that person remembered where he had heard of Ling Han's name. But when he raised his head, he saw that the two people beside him had disappeared. Looking around, he found that the two people beside him had also been embedded in the city wall. It was too savage. He thought of the legend regarding Ling Han. He had killed more than 10 celestial kings from the 9 great clans. Those were all peak celestial kings of the 9th heavens. Even for a celestial venerable force like them, it would take several epochs to nurture a peak celestial king of the 9th heavens. The death of one meant that countless resources would be wasted. You know who I am? Ling Han smiled, but his right hand still struck out without hesitation. Pa! The last person was also sent flying, embedded in the crack of the city wall. I've always been a fair person. Since I broke the wall, I'll repair it, Ling Han said to himself. When the 4 guards heard this, the corners of their mouths twitched. Who would repair the wall like this? Using one celestial king after another to fill in the crack? This was too extravagant, and the Lu clan would go crazy from anger. Sure enough, after a short while, more celestial kings appeared. This time, there were more people. Because the longer the alarm was, the more people would receive the news. Moreover, there was still no news of the alarm being lifted. This was naturally not right. It must have alarmed some powerful existences. Xiao, xiao, xiao. More than 10 celestial kings flew down from various corners of the city. When they saw that the city wall had been broken, and that 4 celestial kings from their clans were among them, a cold glint flashed in their eyes. Who was so bold? Did he have a death wish? Bastard, you still dare to sit? Hurry up and kneel to accept your death. A young man jumped out. He was only at the 2nd heaven stage, but there were clansmen at the 5th and 6th heaven stage nearby, so he was naturally confident and fearless. Noisy, Ling Han snorted coldly and waved his palm at the young man. How dare you? 2 6th firmament celestial kings immediately roared angrily. How dare he show off in front of them? They attacked one after another, attacking Ling Han. Pung, pung, pung. 3 sounds rang out. The 2 6th firmament celestial kings and the 2nd firmament youth were sent flying with a single slap. They were also embedded in the city wall. The other Lu family celestial kings couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. This was too ferocious. Why were 6th firmament celestial kings like toys in front of him? They were sent flying with a casual slap. Ling Han looked up at the city wall and muttered to himself, I'm still missing a dozen or so. If he added another dozen or so people, the city wall would be able to be sewn together. Upon hearing this, the celestial kings of the Lu clan all paled in fright, and they all retreated. Right now, the strongest among them was only a 5th heaven celestial king. In front of Ling Han, they were as powerless as lambs. Buzz, a terrifying pressure descended as an expert descended from the sky. There were 9 rays of light revolving around his body. A 9th firmament celestial king had arrived. Finally, a true expert had appeared. Patriarch 7 Abyss. It's Patriarch 7 Abyss. Patriarch, hurry up and take action. Suppress this savage. The Lu family's celestial kings shouted in unison. Now that their backbone had arrived, they immediately hardened up. This 9th firmament celestial king was called Lu Qiyuan. He looked at Ling Han and said in a deep voice, So it's Taoist Ling. Why don't you state your identity, so that the Han family can receive you well? What? Upon hearing this, the Lu family members were stunned. Was the patriarch crazy? He was actually so polite to a savage. They were the Lu family, a family with a 3rd step heavenly venerate. let alone a ninth firmament celestial king. Even a quasi-heavenly venerate had to be respectful and courteous. Ling Han smiled faintly. I'm here to collect a debt. You can barely be considered a person in charge, right? Let me ask you, how are you going to compensate me for the losses you sent people to attack me in the martial academy? Compensate you for the losses? Lu Qiyuan nearly jumped up. You killed 2 ninth firmament celestial kings of our Lu family, and you want us to compensate you. However, when he thought of Ling Han's savagery, he remembered that more than 30 peak ninth firmament celestial kings had attacked together. In the end, not only had they failed to take down Ling Han, but they had also lost more than a dozen peak immortal Dao kings. Now the Lu family only had 19 ninth firmament celestial kings. They didn't have the strength of a quasi-heavenly venerate. How could they resist this malignant star? Ling Han, don't forget that this is the Lu family. Our patriarch is a third-step heavenly venerate. Lu Qiyuan said coldly. Now, he only hoped to scare Ling Han. When the Lu family's patriarch returned in the future, suppressing Ling Han would naturally be a piece of cake. Ling Han laughed loudly. If I'm afraid, why did I come here? He put away his smile and knocked on the armrest of the chair. Don't waste my time. If you don't think about how you're going to compensate me, I'll go in and get it myself. Chapter 2695. You. Lu Qiyuan pointed at Ling Han, so angry that he couldn't speak. This was the Lu family, you bastard. Ling Han's gaze sharpened. I hate it when people point fingers at me. He sprang off the ground. Pung! He instantly exploded with astonishing speed and charged toward Lu Qiyuan. Although Lu Qiyuan was very afraid of Ling Han, it wasn't to the point where he didn't even dare to fight. After all, he was a ninth firmament immortal king. Despicable brat, don't go too far. He roared. Each of his hands grabbed a path and smashed it towards Ling Han. At the peak of the ninth heavenly layer, there was basically no need to use any secret arts when fighting against initial stage immortal kings. One only needed to grab the great Dao and smash it out. This was a suppression of cultivation bases. It was always successful. Ling Han sneered. Combining his physical arts and laws, his punches were violent and quickly suppressed Lu Qiyuan. When the people from the Lu clan arrived, they couldn't help but be stunned. He is only at the 8th heavenly layer. He can suppress Patriarch 7 Abyss, who is at the peak of the 9th heaven, at the 8th heaven. What if he advances to the 9th heaven? Doesn't that mean he can suppress quasi-empyreans? Heavens! They all held their heads. This was a scene they didn't dare believe. It was too shocking. Damn it! Damn it! Lu Qiyuan roared angrily. Previously, he had only heard Ling Han's description of how powerful he was from the celestial king that had escaped from the Lu clan. Now that he had personally faced him, he finally realized just how powerful Ling Han was. He couldn't believe that an 8th firmament immortal king could be so powerful. He went all out, but he couldn't turn the tables at all. No matter what he did, it was useless. He was suppressed by Ling Han the entire time. You're going too far. He roared and took out his celestial artifact. This was an umbrella. As soon as it was opened, the originally 10,000 li clear sky immediately became an expanse of darkness. Zzz, lightning flickered about, emitting a supreme might. Die! Lu Qiyuan roared. The 30-odd immortal kings had surrounded Ling Han, but they had only wanted to capture him. They had no intention of taking his life. In fact, they couldn't even heavily injure him. Naturally, they hadn't brought their immortal treasures with them. But it was different this time. Ling Han had come to their house to bully them. Even if he killed Ling Han with an immortal artifact, the martial institution would not say anything. Quang! A bolt of lightning soared and struck toward Ling Han. Ling Han reached out his hand to receive it. Pung! Sparks flickered, turning into countless symbol fragments, as well as a bit of blood. He was hurt. After all, his undying immortal king physique was only at the great accomplishment level, and he had not advanced to the immortal metal level. Taking on the might of an immortal weapon with his bare hands still injured him a little. It was a light injury, just a little bit of blood. Ling Han shook his head. If he had stepped into the 9th layer of heaven, and had the great Tao wrapped around his hand. He would definitely not be injured if he took this attack head-on. Unless he was directly hit by a celestial artifact, he would still be injured. Right now he was only at the 8th layer of heaven. His battle prowess could suppress a 9th layer of heaven, but that was because of his domineering body techniques. In terms of regulations, he was naturally still inferior to a 9th layer of heaven. When Lu Qiyuan took out his immortal artifact and injured Ling Han with one strike, the members of the Lu family were overjoyed, and they all cheered loudly. Lu Qiyuan also revealed a smile. Ling Han was only Esozo. Previously, he could show off his ferocious might because he held an immortal artifact in his hand, while the others did not. Competing in immortal artifacts? Ling Han laughed. Are you sure you want to do this? You still don't know the foundation of my Lu family. Every 9th layer immortal king has an immortal artifact. When they show their might together, even a quasi-celestial venerable will not be able to withstand it. Lu Qiyuan sneered. In the end, you are only a mere 8th layer of heaven. How would you know how terrifying my Lu family's accumulation over the eons is? Quang quang quang. Lightning struck wildly. Ling Han chuckled. This guy really took advantage of a little advantage, and then took advantage. Did he really think that an immortal artifact was so amazing? Then let me experience it. Ling Han let out a long roar and charged forward. Lu Qiyuan brandished his celestial tool and swept it at Ling Han, wanting to suppress Ling Han in a domineering manner. As for whether to kill him or force Ling Han to concoct alchemical pills after capturing him, this would still have to be decided by the various elites after discussion. Shwa, a cold light swept past. Lu Qiyuan was instantly sent flying, and he discovered to his shock that a hole had been cut on the surface of his umbrella. With a rusted sword in hand, Ling Han's attack was like a rotten chopper. But it was precisely this rusted sword that was about to turn to slag that had cut through his immortal artifact in one move. This is... Lu Qiyuan's expression changed greatly. The immortal king that had escaped had said that Ling Han was suspected to have a paragon treasure. He had always scoffed at it. How could a mere 8th layer of heaven possess such a treasure? But now, he had to admit that if it wasn't a paragon treasure, how could it be so ferocious? Can't compare, Ling Han said with a smile. Lu Qiyuan was speechless. The Lu clan naturally had a paragon treasure, but it had always been by the Lu clan's ancestor's side, accompanying him to battle in the foreign battlefields. Facing an elite whose battle prowess surpassed the peak of 9th layer, and with a paragon treasure, how could he resist? Hee, so it is Grandmaster Ling who has arrived. Forgive us for not going out to meet you. With a long laugh, 18 9th layer celestial kings appeared together. This was the strongest force of the Lu clan. At first, they had been watching the battle in secret, but when Ling Han drew out the divine demon sword and displayed his might, they naturally could not sit still, and walked out together. Ling Han held his sword and stood. Don't say such useless things. My request is very simple. Compensate me for my losses, and I will leave immediately. The current patriarch of the Lu clan, Lu Yanghe, stood out and said, Previously, we were bewitched by scoundrels to attack Grandmaster Ling. This is indeed our fault. Hearing these words, the members of the Lu clan all felt their faces burn. This was a humiliation. Ever since the Lu clan had been established, when had they suffered such grievances? Being attacked at their door, they had to humble themselves and apologize. But who told the Lu clan to be so disappointing? After several epochs, there was still not a single pseudo-heavenly venerable. Otherwise, how could they be so miserable? Other great clans, such as the Wang clan, had an ancestor who was a third-step heavenly venerable. Later, there was a genius, Wang Andi, who had advanced to pseudo-heavenly venerable after cultivating for a few billion years. Advancing to become a true heavenly venerable was only a matter of time. Why did the Lu clan have no successors? We are willing to compensate Grandmaster Ling. Here are 3 pieces of divine metal. Please accept them, Grandmaster Ling. Lu Yanghe waved his hand, and immediately, a beautiful woman walked out, holding a tray in her hand. On it were 3 pieces of metal of different colors, but all of them radiated with astonishing brilliance. This caused many of the juniors of the Liu clan to be envious. Even 8th layer celestial kings were green with envy. These were divine metal. In the Liu clan, only those who had become 9th layer celestial kings could be bestowed divine metal. This was a rule. Ling Han did not even look at it, and waved his hand saying, "Not enough." His life was only worth 3 pieces of divine metal. What a joke. The members of the Liu clan were enraged. What was he acting so high and mighty for? If not for the Liu clan's patriarch presiding over the outer realm battlefield, would he even have the chance to be so arrogant? Ling Han, don't go too far, reprimanded a 9th layer celestial king. My patriarch presides over the outer realm battlefield, fending off Frenzy's invasion. It's precisely because of his sacrifice that you have the space to grow. Now you are acting violently in the Liu clan. Can you live up to your conscience? Ling Han laughed. That's right. I do admire the Liu clan's patriarch's sacrifice and contribution to fending off Frenzy. But is this a reason for you to bully me and humiliate me? Chapter 2697. An 8th heaven celestial king actually addressed a quasi-celestial as brother? This was a little unimaginable. He thought too highly of himself. However, the quasi-celestial from the Yin family only smiled faintly. He wasn't angry at all. My surname is Yin, and my name is Haoyang. Good name. Ling Han nodded. Little fellow, you are indeed quite monstrous. To be able to suppress a peak 9th heaven celestial king, as an 8th heaven celestial king, you will probably dazzle the world. Even among the current 7th step celestial venerables, there are very few who can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Yin Haoyang gave Ling Han a very high evaluation. But you should know that in Celestial King is just in Celestial King. In front of a quasi-celestial venerable, they are nothing. When he said the last sentence, he revealed his sharpness, emitting the light of a peerless divine sword. It was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Then let's battle. Ling Han's heroic spirit soared, and he charged towards Yin Haoyang with his sword in hand. Humph, do you really think you can be so lawless? Yin Haoyang sneered. His figure flashed, and he was also incomparably fast. What was a quasi-celestial venerable? It was to use the unique power of heaven and earth to temper one's body. Outside of the laws, one possessed an astonishing body technique that even surpassed the power of laws. When the day came that one could not only use such power to temper one's body, but could even use it, one would no longer be a quasi-celestial venerable, but a true celestial venerable. A quasi-celestial venerable was in existence between an immortal king and a celestial venerable. Ling Han had tempered his body with the energy of a hollow child, so he was definitely stronger than an ordinary quasi-celestial venerable. However, he was limited by his cultivation realm, so it was impossible for him to be a match for a true quasi-celestial venerable. This was a qualitative difference. Yin Haoyang attacked. He was faster than Ling Han, and his strength was also greater. As he punched out, the power of his fists stacked on top of each other, causing Ling Han's figure to rapidly slow down. Then he came to a stop, then retreated, then accelerated. Pung! He was blasted into the ground, causing the earth to rumble and dust to fill the air. Pung! Ling Han shot out from the ground. His clothes were covered with dust and dirt, and there was even blood. His skin was split open. A quasi-Empyrean's attack was indeed tyrannical. Even though Ling Han's strength had increased by a step compared to when he had fought against He Yufeng, he still suffered a bit from a quasi-Empyrean's attack. Fortunately, this was only a small loss. It was only a flesh wound and not a tendon or bone, nor did it shake his foundation. Your body is indeed amazing. Yin Haoyang nodded. Even though his body had been tempered by the unique power in the world, it still couldn't compare to Ling Han's body. Ling Han must have cultivated some kind of secret technique that allowed him to improve his body to such a high level. Ling Han patted the dirt off his body and said, "The strength of a quasi-Empyrean is indeed tyrannical, but if Brother Yun's combat strength is only limited to this, This kind of combat strength was indeed above him, but it was impossible to completely overwhelm him. Then I'll let you see the power of a quasi-Empyrean." Yin Haoyang attacked again. It was a simple punch, but it was accompanied by the great Tao and supported by a terrifying power. This was a mighty attack that would cause even ninth heaven celestial kings to tremble in fear. Ling Han moved with his sword. Shua, with a slash of his sword, the power was instantly broken by him, and it slid past both sides. A celestial venerable treasure tool was invincible. Good. Yun Haoyang revealed a look of admiration, as expected of a celestial venerable treasure tool. It's clearly only a qualitative step forward, and it can't be called a true paragon treasure tool, but it can even break through my attack. It's truly extraordinary. He reached out to grab at Ling Han, and his power condensed into a large grayish gold hand. It was covered in runes, and an aura that surpassed the laws permeated the air. This was a quasi-empyrean, with power that surpassed celestial kings as the dominant force. Supplemented by the supreme laws, their combat strength was higher than celestial kings, but lower than a true celestial venerable. This treasure tool, I'll accept it. In your dreams. Ling Han laughed loudly, and channeled the 5 elemental lightning technique. His left hand pressed out, and met the large grayish gold hand. Boom! There was a great explosion of power, setting off a boundless tide of energy. Xiao Ling Han charged out. After activating the celestial venerable treasure technique, his battle prowess had already touched the threshold of a quasi-empyrean. At least in a situation where Yun Haoyang didn't activate the celestial venerable treasure technique, there was no way that he could suppress him. He shot towards Yun Haoyang, and slashed out with the divine demon sword in his hand, switching from defense to offense. Prison circle. Yun Haoyang smiled faintly, and stretched out a hand, lightly drawing a circle. Ling Han instantly felt that the air around him had become incomparably solid, forcing his figure to a halt. He slashed out with his sword. Shwa shwa shwa, the air was slashed apart, and he charged out. However, after such a gap, Yun Haoyang once again struck out with his palm, and it still turned into a large dark golden hand. In the hands of Yun Haoyang, this kind of attack could be unleashed at will. He was a true quasi-empyrean, so using this kind of attack was naturally a piece of cake. But for Ling Han, the burden on him was too great. Even if he had leaped into the 8th heaven, he could only channel the 5 elemental lightning technique 100 or so times. How could he withstand this kind of consumption? Pung! He no longer channeled the celestial venerable treasure technique, and was instantly pressed down by a palm, heavily smashing into the ground. In a few exchanges, Ling Han was completely at a disadvantage. Regarding this, he was not discouraged, because he had long since expected that his present battle prowess could not possibly surpass that of a quasi-empyrean. He was only using his opponent's hand to temper himself. Yun Haoyang, on the other hand, was somewhat surprised. Although he had heard of Ling Han's monstrous talent, he did not take Ling Han seriously. After all, Ling Han only had an celestial venerable treasure, which could kill a 9th heaven celestial king, and make them flee in disarray. But in front of him, he could not gain any advantage. No matter how he tried to suppress him, Ling Han would always be able to immediately rebound. This kind of opponent was really difficult to deal with. His physique was tyrannical, and his will was like iron. Even when he was at a disadvantage, he was still incomparably calm. After all, he only had an celestial venerable treasure that could kill a 9th heaven celestial king. But in front of him, he could not gain any advantage. No matter how he tried to suppress him, Ling Han would always be able to immediately rebound. This kind of opponent was really difficult to deal with. He had to fight for real now. To be able to last until now, you are really astonishing. You can be called the #1 person in the celestial king realm, Yun Haoyang said. However, if I channel the celestial venerable treasure technique, how many moves can you withstand? Ling Han raised his fists. You can try. As you wish. Yun Haoyang spread his arms apart. His left hand was perfectly straight, and was raised horizontally in front of his chest. Meanwhile, his right hand was in the posture of drawing a bow. Wang! A flash of golden light condensed, and turned into a long arrow that was pointed straight at Ling Han. Ling Han's hair immediately stood on end, and he felt a suffocating feeling, as if he was facing death. I'm not playing anymore. He hurriedly broke into a run. His battle prowess was originally inferior to a quasi-celestial venerable, and now that a quasi-celestial venerable was using his ultimate move, it was completely impossible for him to block it. If he forcefully received the attack, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. Only an idiot would do that. Yun Haoyang was slightly startled. He didn't expect that Ling Han, who had spoken so domineeringly just a moment ago, would turn around and flee in the blink of an eye. Ling Han was so direct, and he didn't even leave behind a single sentence. Thinking about it, it made sense. An 8th heaven celestial king, fighting a quasi-celestial venerable, it was only natural for him to avoid the battle. If Ling Han forcefully took the attack head-on, no one would say that he was brave, and they would only call him an idiot. As he thought about it, Yun Haoyang loosened his grip. Go! With a light shout, the golden arrow shot out, rapidly chasing after Ling Han. Chapter 2698. A Beautiful Romance. Yun Yanghao shot out an arrow with boundless power. How could the ultimate move of a quasi-celestial venerable not be powerful? But the problem was that Ling Han was too clever. As soon as he sensed the power of the ultimate move, he had already begun to retreat, and Yun Yanghao could not move when he was charging his ultimate move. Although this process only took less than half a breath's time, for Ling Han, this bit of time was enough for him to run a very, very long distance away. Xiao! The golden arrow chased after him, its speed far exceeding that of Ling Han, rapidly closing the distance between them. But there was always an end to a powerful crossbow. When the tip of the arrow was within 30 meters of Ling Han, its momentum was exhausted. The golden light constantly left the body of the arrow, and the body of the arrow also began to disintegrate, finally turning into nothingness. The attack of a quasi-celestial venerable had died. I'll play with you again next time. Ling Han did not stop running, but his voice floated over from afar. Yun Yanghao stopped and did not pursue. Looking at Ling Han's speed, he knew that the other was not much inferior to him, and Ling Han had the advantage of starting first, so it was too late to pursue. Fine, his task was only to guard the clan. After he completely consolidated his quasi-celestial venerable tier, he would go to the foreign battlefield, and it would be fine as long as he killed Ling Han before that. Ling Han sprinted for a very, very long time before finally stopping. After a while, the large black dog and Wally rushed over. Little Han, there is a quasi-celestial venerable in this clan. Let's go to another clan, the large black dog said. No, let's continue to play here. Ling Han shook his head, his expression very determined. He wanted to use Yun Yanghao as a sparring partner to break through the 9th heaven. Brat, you are playing with fire, the large black dog said solemnly. The power of a celestial venerable could not be offended, and Ling Han provoked a quasi-celestial venerable. Even if he was killed, the Lin clan could not say anything, because he had asked for it. And with Yin Yanghao's strength, as long as Ling Han made a mistake, he would be doomed eternally. Ling Han smiled. I will try my best not to die. The large black dog rolled his eyes and said, If you die, Grandpa Dog will find a way to collect your corpse. I really have to thank you. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Couldn't this guy say something nice? The large black dog patted Ling Han's shoulder and said, Brat, you've only cultivated for how many years? Yet you're already almost at the level of a pseudo-celestial venerate. What's the point of rushing for quick results? Let's take things one step at a time. Ling Han also knew that what the large black dog said was reasonable. Even in the fiery frost realm, the fastest person to reach the pseudo-celestial venerable tier had taken more than 10 billion years. Ling Han had only cultivated for 100 million years, yet he was already barely able to stand shoulder to shoulder with a quasi-Empyrean. This was something that had never happened since time immemorial, so he couldn't be any faster. However, there was a sense of oppression in his heart. It wasn't just from Tiansheng, He Yufeng, Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing, and the others. An even greater pressure came from Frenzy. The incident at the cemetery of the Celestial King told him that Frenzy didn't just know how to attack head-on. It could also use intelligence. Its heaven-defying martial prowess was already difficult to resist, and now it could also use intelligence. This kind of opponent was too terrifying. This time, it was the cemetery of the Celestial King. What would it be next? Frenzy was always on the offensive. This meant that as long as it succeeded once, the Fiery Frost realm would be finished, and under the chain reaction, the entire origin world would also fall into the hands of Frenzy. The large black dog also became serious. Okay, if you're caught, Grandpa Dog will think of a way to save you. Ling Han smiled and began to conserve his energy. The process of his battle with Yin Yanghao flashed through his mind. One was to study his opponent's tactics, and the other was to see if he could find an opportunity to break through. However, once he reached the pseudo-celestial venerable tier, every move he made was full of ingenious moves, so how could there be any traces to follow? Ling Han sighed and decided to find Yin Yanghao to fight again. He acted decisively and attacked again. Yin Yanghao, come and fight! He came to the Yin family's gate and called out. You actually dared to come? Yin Yanghao humphed. He had just fled with his tail between his legs, and he had returned so quickly. Hadn't he learned his lesson? He attacked decisively, and without saying a word, directly attacked to suppress him. As long as Yin Yanghao did not use his ultimate move, Ling Han could rely on the indestructible Celestial King body to deal with him. At most, he would be slightly injured. However, when Yin Yanghao used his ultimate move, Ling Han knew that he was no match for him, and immediately fled. He fought with Yin Yanghao, and every 2 or 3 days, he would attack the Yin family to challenge him. Sometimes the interval was longer, and he would only return once every 10 days or so. That was because his injuries were slightly more severe. Sometimes he would return after a few hours. That was because the time it took for Yin Yanghao to unleash his ultimate move was too fast, allowing Ling Han to slip away early. Fighting like this, half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Although Ling Han could not break through the Yin family's defenses, the Yin family did not capture him either. Moreover, because of Ling Han, the Yin family did not dare to take a step out, for fear of being intercepted and killed halfway. A dignified Empyrean force was actually forced to be a coward. This made everyone in the Yin family very angry. But who asked Ling Han to be so monstrous? His speed was not much slower than Yin Yanghao's, and even Yin Yanghao could not do anything to him. Driving Ling Han away was easy, but suppressing Ling Han was also a dream. It was not that Yin Yanghao had not tried to chase after Ling Han, but as long as he did not use his ultimate move, he could not do anything to Ling Han. But if he wanted to use his ultimate move, he needed time to prepare. And this time was enough for Ling Han to escape. A quasi-Empyrean actually could not take down an 8th-level Celestial King. When the news spread, everyone was shocked. The last time he fought with He Yufeng, Ling Han could not even withstand a single blow. Although he had caused He Yufeng to bleed in anger, the gap between them was still very clear. Now for a whole half a year, they only saw Ling Han provoke the Yin family, but did not see the Yin family capture him. If it was said that Yin Yanghao went easy on him, probably no one would believe it. It was too terrifying. He had only increased by 1 tier, and his battle prowess had increased countless times. They had neglected the use of the divine demon sword. If it were not for this celestial venerable treasure, then Ling Han could only immediately flee when he encountered Yin Yanghao. He was not qualified to be a match at all. Even so, Ling Han was indeed awesome, forcing a quasi-Empyrean to only defend in his family. What other celestial king could do this? However, Ling Han was not satisfied at all. He had always challenged Yin Yanghao, like playing with fire. His goal was to use him to break through to the 9th heaven, but half a year had passed, and he had gained nothing. There was no hope of breaking through at all. This made him a little depressed and a little irritated. Again, as usual, he went to challenge the Yin family, and Yin Yanghao had no choice but to accept the challenge. You used me to break through to the 9th heaven, right? After fighting for so long, Yin Yanghao naturally discovered Ling Han's intentions. Otherwise, there was no point in provoking him again and again. His eyes flashed with coldness. A celestial king actually dared to use him as a whetstone. How arrogant, and how much he looked down on him. Ling Han broke into a smile. You've come out. It's impossible for you to do it. Yin Yanghao sneered. 9 by 9 returned to 1, the extreme number of the heavens. I admit that you are a monster, but the 9 heavens requires time and effort. Even billions of years would be considered short, and an epic isn't long either. Moreover, the more talented you are, the longer it will take to break through. You won't be able to last until then. I'm about to finish consolidating my tier. At that time, my battle prowess will soar several times, and killing you will be like slaughtering a chicken. Chapter 2699. Ling Han stood in the air. He thought for a moment and said, "You're right. Ling Han, it's about time you quit," advised Yun Yanghao. "You're only at the 8th level of the celestial realm, yet you've achieved such a result. If word gets out, no other celestial king will be able to match your reputation. The foreign battlefield needs a genius like you. I don't want to kill you, so don't force me." This was naturally a delaying tactic. An Empyrean force was blocked by an 8th level celestial king. Every day that passed was a great humiliation to the Yun family. Therefore, Yun Yanghao hoped to drive Ling Han away. When he completely consolidated his quasi-Empyrean cultivation, or when the patriarch of the family returned, killing Ling Han would be much easier. For now he would let this kid be happy and proud for a while. Ling Han smiled and said, "Yun Yanghao, come and fight. I'll have a good fight with you this time." He had a sudden realization. Every time Yun Yanghao used a big move he would dodge. Although this kind of battle was a bit stressful and would hurt him, he knew that his life would not be in danger. Since that was the case, how could he squeeze out his potential and use Yun Yanghao to break through to the 9th level of the celestial realm? He needed real pressure to make him feel that life and death were on the line, that he could die at any moment. Therefore, he wanted to fight again. This time, he wouldn't dodge Yun Yanghao's big move. Yun Yanghao, however, almost exploded in fury. He had already lowered his stance and tried to persuade Ling Han with kind words. But Ling Han was still stubborn, determined to go against the Yun clan. Was a quasi-Empyrean's word so worthless? His face was filled with a sinister expression. This time, he was truly enraged. "Since you're so stubborn, I'll let you taste regret," he said word by word. Ling Han didn't waste any more words. He raised his fists and attacked Yun Yanghao. He wanted to put himself in extreme danger, where he could die at any moment, and force him to use every bit of his potential. "You're really arrogant." Yun Yanghao was furious. Without the help of an Empyrean treasure, how could Ling Han fight him? Bam! With just one strike, Ling Han spat out a mouthful of blood. The immortal king indestructible body allowed him to face off against a peak 9th heaven immortal king without fear. But against a quasi-Empyrean, one strike was enough to seriously injure him. Again, Ling Han laughed heartily. He found that his blood was starting to boil. It turned out that he had always been wrong. Even though he was challenging a pseudo-Empyrean, he was always fighting back and forth. Was that still called fighting? Battles had to be grand and vigorous, where one would fight to the death to rise from the ashes. "You really want to die?" Yun Yanghao sneered. He didn't know what was wrong with Ling Han, but Ling Han's willingness to fight him was exactly what he wanted. He could only hope that this brat wouldn't run away again. Boom, 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 the two of them clashed, and Ling Han was in an absolutely disadvantageous position. Every time they clashed, he would spit out blood, and after a dozen or so exchanges, his bones were broken. However, Ling Han didn't retreat, nor did he retrieve his divine demon sword. He ignited his fighting spirit and channeled the indestructible heavens scroll. The speed at which his injuries recovered was astonishing. Fight, 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 he was like a mad demon. Even Yun Yanghao was a little shocked. Was a mere 8th heaven celestial king so difficult to kill? The pseudo-Empyrean had already attacked several hundred times, but Ling Han was still gritting his teeth and persisting. Anyone would be moved by this. What worried him even more was that in such a bloody battle, Ling Han might really break through and take the last step to the celestial king tier. If it was anyone else, then even if it was a 9th heaven celestial king, he wouldn't be afraid at all. He could suppress them with a single hand, but Ling Han was different. This guy had such battle prowess at the 8th heaven, so once he reached the 9th heaven, he might be able to stand on equal footing with him. With the help of the divine demon sword, it was really possible that he could suppress him. He definitely couldn't let this brat break through. He went all out, wanting to kill Ling Han with the force of a thunderbolt. Ling Han's battle was incredibly difficult. Even if Yun Yanghao didn't use the heavenly venerable treasure technique, how terrifying was the power of a pseudo-Empyrean. His injuries became more and more serious, but the fighting spirit he exuded became more and more vigorous. It was like smoke rising into the sky, becoming tangible. His face had long been dyed red with blood, and he exuded a ferocious aura. He was like a wounded lone wolf, and his counterattack would only become fiercer. Even Yun Yanghao didn't dare to be careless. Although Ling Han didn't use the divine demon sword, he could still pose a considerable threat to him if he used the heavenly venerable treasure technique. He didn't want to be injured by an 8th heaven celestial king, even if it was a minor injury. This would make him a laughingstock for eternity. Die, 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 he cried in his mind. Even a pseudo-Empyrean's mentality lost its balance. But Ling Han didn't die, and was astonishingly tenacious. After being suppressed, he would immediately rebound, and the harder he suppressed, the stronger the rebound. Yun Yanghao sighed. He had to admit that if they only used normal battle prowess, he really couldn't do anything to Ling Han. He had to use a powerful move. He pulled some distance away from Ling Han, and his hands formed a bow. Wang, a golden arrow quickly formed. Even he couldn't use such a powerful move too many times, because it involved the unique power of heaven and earth. Originally, he could only extract it to temper his body, and couldn't use it directly against an enemy. But with the heavenly venerable treasured technique, even if it was only a sliver, a little bit, it was a power that surpassed regulations. It crushed and destroyed everything, and only the power of a heavenly venerable could block it. Ling Han's hair immediately stood on end. His first reaction was to flee, but he forcibly suppressed it. If he wanted to break through, he had to force himself into a completely desperate situation, and then rise from the ashes and soar into the sky. Come. He used the 9 transformations heaven scroll, and his power increased infinitely. Don't dodge. Yun Yanghao was stunned at first, and then overjoyed. This was a heavenly venerable treasured technique, and even pseudo-Empyreans didn't dare to take it head-on. You, an 8th heaven celestial king, want to take it head-on? You're really seeking death. However, this was exactly what he wanted. This time he really had to die. Xiao. Yun Yanghao loosened his grip, and the golden arrow shot out. It was too fast, and the arrow directly crushed space. 222. It left behind a ripple of regulations behind it, and in a flash, it had already appeared in front of Ling Han. Break! Ling Han swung his fist. Z9-colored lightning wrapped around his fist. He used 2 heavenly venerable treasured techniques at the same time in this punch, and the flesh on his entire arm instantly exploded. Compared to when he was at the 7th heaven, his physique hadn't improved, but his cultivation level was higher, and his battle prowess was naturally stronger as well. However, the power of the backlash was also stronger, and the damage to his body was also greater. Pung! This punch landed on the golden arrow, an endless brilliance burst forth. At this moment, heaven and earth lost color. Countless stars were shaken down, as if it was raining. Ling Han blocked the golden arrow. No. Even if he used 2 heavenly venerable treasured techniques together, it wouldn't be enough. Ling Han's entire arm was now only left with the skeleton, and instantly turned into countless broken bones that flew in all directions. Meanwhile, the golden arrow's energy was only partially consumed, and it continued to blast towards Ling Han. Ling Han roared, and activated the indestructible heavens scroll to the extreme. Multiple golden seals appeared on his body. Chapter 2701. This was another long process. The characters of the heavenly venerables appeared in Ling Han's mind. This was meaningless to him, but it could increase his efficiency in attracting Su Zi by 100-fold. Even so, his progress was still slow. After 30,000 years, Ling Han once again ended his seclusion. He opened his eyes, and 2 beams of cold light illuminated the heaven and earth, as if they could pierce through the fire-frost plane. Then, his eyes became ordinary, and there was only a gentle light left. His aura was completely restrained, and he looked like an ordinary person. Returning to simplicity, great completion of the realm. Ling Han laughed loudly and stood up. He casually moved his arms and boom, a terrifying qi and blood surged like a great river. Little Han, you've finally come out. The large black dog jumped out. Grandpa Dog has been waiting for so long that calluses are growing under my butt. Ling Han only chuckled. Did he think that he wouldn't know just because he was in seclusion? This damn dog was extremely showy, so how could he calm down? He must have gone everywhere. And it just so happened that he hadn't gone out yet. Vitality Index, 14,574. Wally's eyes glowed green as he scanned Ling Han. Hiss, brat. Your current strength is no weaker than a pseudo-heavenly venerable, the large black dog said excitedly. This was too shocking. A ninth heaven celestial king had the battle prowess of a pseudo-heavenly venerable. If he became a pseudo-heavenly venerable, wouldn't he be able to kill a first-step heavenly venerable? But Ling Han knew that he wasn't that powerful. He seemed to be in the early stage of the ninth heaven, but his body technique had already reached the level of a pseudo-heavenly venerable. This wouldn't change, even if he truly became a pseudo-heavenly venerable. Thus, he could only improve the power of regulations, which was naturally small. Of course, because his body was tempered by Suzi's energy, his strength was far stronger than most pseudo-heavenly venerables. Not bad, at least I can beat someone up. He smiled. In terms of body technique, he was only in the early stage of a pseudo-heavenly venerable, but because of Suzi's energy, his vitality index could compare to the late stage of a pseudo-heavenly venerable. This was naturally enough for him to suppress Yin Yang Hao. That's great. Grandpa Dog can't wait any longer. The large black dog yelled. He loved things like raiding people's possessions the most. They left the sea and headed back to the Yin family. 200,000 years had passed, and the Yin family had long since returned to normal. In the beginning, they were indeed worried that Ling Han would make a comeback. However, they had been cautious for year after year. Yet Ling Han never appeared again. Thus they gradually relaxed. Ling Han should already be dead. This was quite normal. After suffering a great move from a pseudo-Empyrean, wasn't it normal for the injuries to not be treated? Some of the Yin family members questioned Yin Yanghao, and after careful consideration, Yin Yanghao concluded that Ling Han was already dead. At that time, Ling Han was already heavily injured. Now that he was being chased by him, his injuries worsened, and the chances of him dying were very high. Before he wasn't sure, but after tens of thousands of years, there was still no news of Ling Han. Even he was sure that Ling Han was definitely dead. He felt that it was a pity. Ling Han's body was so strong, and he must have cultivated a celestial venerable technique. Now that it had disappeared with Ling Han's death, he felt that it was a pity. Previously, Ling Han had suppressed them too harshly, causing the Yin family to lose all faith. Thus, although they hadn't found Ling Han's body, with Yin Yanghao personally confirming that Ling Han was dead, they began to spread the news that Ling Han had been killed by their pseudo-Empyrean in order to restore the Yin family's reputation. But a mere level 8 heaven, how could he shake the Yin family? Once a pseudo-Empyrean makes a move, the weak can only die. This is the result of angering the Yin family. They boasted to their heart's content, completely forgetting that Ling Han had blocked their door. And even a pseudo-Empyrean couldn't do anything about it. However, history was ultimately in the hands of the victors. Ling Han didn't jump out to refute it, and many people gradually accepted the fact that Ling Han was dead. Now the Yin family was full of songs and dances, because Ling Han had caused such a big commotion. And because he was so legendary, there were people who specially came to pay their respects and offer their condolences. The Yin family couldn't stop them. Over time, a small town was formed here. Every day, a large number of martial artists would come here to remember the last battle of a generation super monster, Ling Han, who had fallen here. When Ling Han and the other two arrived, they were startled by the sudden appearance of a small town below. They were a little confused. What was going on? Let's go, Ling Han said. They changed their appearances. Ling Han had returned to his original state, and actually didn't need to disguise himself much. If it wasn't someone who was familiar with him, it would be impossible to associate him with his previous self. The large black dog had transformed into a human form. He was a big man who was 7 feet tall and looked very mighty. However, his eyes were extremely wretched, and it couldn't change his nature. As for Wally, he didn't need to change anything. He didn't show his face at all. The 3 people entered the small town and found that it was really bustling here. There were restaurants, gambling dens, and even brothels. People came and went like a stream. Come, come. These are stones that are stained with Lord Linghan's blood. Someone called out from the side of the road. Someone shouted from the side of the road. He had set up a stall, and it was full of rocks that were indeed dyed red with blood. This call immediately attracted the attention of many people on the road, and they all crowded over. Is it real or fake? Someone asked. Now there were too many people using the banner of Linghan's relics. In the end, it turned out that most of the items were fake. Of course it's real. Don't you feel the pressure emitted by the blood stains on these stones? The stall owner immediately said proudly. Although Lord Linghan has fallen, dying at the hands of a quasi-celestial venerable doesn't tarnish his reputation as a monster at all. Think about it. If you can obtain a shred of his martial art inheritance from Lord Linghan's ancient blood, you might be able to become the second Lord Linghan in the future. This statement was not false. The Celestial King's blood contained the Celestial King's martial art will. If one were to analyze it, they could even pry into the secrets of this Celestial King's cultivation. The problem was the blood on this stone really Linghan's? The surrounding crowd was encouraged by the stall owner to become the second Linghan. This was an astonishing temptation. How much? They all asked. 1 million star stones, the stall owner said. Everyone hesitated. 1 million star stones was not a small number. The majority of them were only minor characters in the severing mundane tier. So it was really not easy to take out 1 million star stones. What Lord Linghan? He is merely trash. Just at this moment, a sudden voice suddenly interjected. Everyone was greatly annoyed. Those who came here had all heard of Linghan's legend and regarded him as their idol. Now someone actually belittled their idol, so they were naturally furious. They all turned around and saw that it was a youth in embroidered clothes. His arrogance could not be concealed no matter what. Who do you think you are, daring to slander Lord Linghan? Someone asked angrily. The eyes of the youth in embroidered clothes turned cold, and he suddenly stretched out a hand towards that person. How dare you, actually dare to slander this young master? You are really tired of living. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.